For the record, my name is Brian Worrell, District 4 City Councilor, and I'm the Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Ways and Means. Today is May 7, 2024. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and FiOS Channel 964. The Council budget review process will encompass a series of public hearings beginning in April and running through June. We strongly encourage residents to take a moment to engage in this process by giving testimony for the record. You can do this in several ways. 1, attend one of our hearings and give public testimony. We will take public testimony at the end of each departmental hearing and also at 2 hearings dedicated to public testimony. The full hearing schedule is on our website at boston.gov/council-budget. Our scheduled hearings dedicated to public testimony are Tuesday, May 28th at 6 p.m. You can give testimony in person, here in the chamber, or virtually via Zoom. For in-person testimony, please come to the chamber and sign up on the sheet near the entrance. For virtual testimony, you can sign up using our online form on our Council Budget Review website or by emailing the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov. When you are called to testify, please state your name and affiliation or residence and limit your comments to a few minutes to ensure that all comments and concerns can be heard. Number 2, you can email your written testimony to the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov, or 3, submit a 2-minute video of your testimony through the form on our website. For more information on the City Council budget process and how to testify, please visit the City Council's budget website at boston.gov/council-budget. Today's hearing is on docket number 0670 through 0672. Orders for the FY25 operating budget, including annual appropriations for departmental operations for the school department and for other post-employment benefits. Docket number 0673 through 0675. Orders for capital fund transfer appropriations. Docket number 0676 through 0678. Orders for the capital budget, including loan orders and lease purchase agreements. These matters were sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and referred to the committee on April 10, 2024. The focus of this hearing will be discuss the FY25 budget for the Planning Department. Today I'm joined by my colleagues in order of arrival, Councilor Coletta, Councilor Santana, Councilor Fitzgerald, the Vice Chair of the Committee, Vice Chair Pepin, Councilor Durkin, Councilor Braden, and Council President Louis Jett. Today's panelists consist of, on behalf of the administration, Chief of Planning and Director of BPDA, Chief Jameson, Deputy Chief of Transformation and Development, Deputy Chief Kirk, and Director of Finance, Director Mathis. The floor is now yours.
Thank you for the invitation. We're thrilled to be here today. Just for the record, my name is Arthur Jemison. I'm the Chief of Planning for the City of Boston. I'm joined by Devin Quirk, my Deputy Chief, and Tim Mathis, our Director of Finance. I'm excited to be here before you today to present and answer questions on the City Planning Department. This is our first budget proposal, so I think it's a milestone that we're here today. I want to thank the Council for their work on the ordinance to establish to the department this year. We're excited to get started and continue to bring a new approach to the way we regulate and shape the built environment in Boston. So, quick agenda for today's conversation. I'll be talking a little bit about the Planning Department, the mission and staff who will carry it out, and I'll pass it on to Tim, who will walk you through some of the numbers. All 3 of us will be available to answer questions at the committee's request. So just a little bit about our mission. Our vision is to shape growth that serves all Bostonians and focuses on the needs and wishes of all residents. Our mission is to address the city's greatest challenges, which we've identified broadly as issues related to climate resilience, affordability, and equity. This new department will take real estate actions and prioritize planning and development, urban design solutions that further solutions on these challenges. We'll do all this while building trust within our wide range of diverse communities through honest and transparent communication and processes that embrace predictability for development actors as well as our citizens. Since I started in this role, my team's been working on across the city to begin a new era of inclusive planning, design, and development in our city. We began by restructuring the BPA to elevate planning and design and began the process of reforming our development review process. We've wrapped up numerous plans and launched the first comprehensive rezoning initiative in decades. Today marks the first time Council truly has a say over the budget of the planning, development, urban design, and real estate functions of the city, which have long been housed under the BPDA as a separate entity. Our budget largely consists of staff, those who are doing the work to plan, rezone, examine projects, and manage the BPDA's real estate portfolio. So we got the org chart up here. The department is broken up into 6 rough lines of business. Our core functions being planning and zoning, led by Amy Chambers, urban design, led by Diana Fernandez, real estate, led by Rebecca Tomasovic, development review, co-led by Casey Hines and Nupur Monani. We will also have an administrative division that houses my office, finance, legal, HR, and information technology departments. Last but not least is the Planning Advisory Council, led by Catherine Lusk, which is responsible for coordinating the many different cabinets and departments that touch the built environment across the city, directing the implementation of our plans. So in terms of the direction of our work, charting a new course for growth is a key role of our department. The establishment of the planning department is one of many steps we're taking to reform the city's relationship with regulating and building the built environment. In the next few slides, I'm going to talk about the process of changing how we plan through citywide zoning reforms, the establishment of a new design vision, modernizing development review, and to continue to take real estate actions for the benefit of the city and its residents. Obviously, we're here today because we've established a city planning department, which will make the work we do related to the built environment more transparent and easier to engage with. Also, as a first step into tying that work into capital planning processes more explicitly, so that things we plan for our residents actually have a plan of action to be constructed, planted, or cared for in the way we have all envisioned. This connection is an important new part of our work and why coming to the city is so important. Through all of this, we're establishing new missions, including changing the tools of the BPDA, abolishing urban renewal, and steering the real estate tools away from blight and decadence and towards delivery of affordability, resilience, and equity. So, just a couple more slides to double click on things we're working on. The zoning code. Even while we've been hard at work at changing the bureaucratic structures, we've had a historically successful year in planning. We've ratified 4 neighborhood plans along with associated zoning. Most exciting to me is that we've launched a long-desired citywide rezoning process. Led by the Squares and Streets initiative, we've codified a menu of options that communities can come together to discuss and decide to adopt in every corner of our city. We've launched small area plans in Rosendale Square and Clary Square. On the horizon are Codman and Four Corners, as well as Fields Corner in Dorchester. We're also incredibly excited to work with residents to determine the future of growth and prosperity in these neighborhood commercial centers. Through these planning studies, we're hoping to make sure growth is predictable and ensuring that even while we are adding thousands of units of housing, all housing we need as a region, we are planning for essential city services and creating opportunities for business. Creating a citywide design vision is also part of our work. Over the past year, we've been engaging our communities to begin to articulate a design vision for the city. We will create a future for a built environment that's inclusive of all Bostonians, create an open space plan, and launch new housing design guidelines that are designed to ensure new families can be part of our growing city. This process, like others we've embarked on, is inclusive of a variety of stakeholders, community members, designers, builders. We've also been focusing on modernizing development review. In FY25, we're committed to delivering a new, modernized Article 80 process, reforming the complex, outdated, and sometimes inconsistent processes that are currently associated with the way development approvals work in the city. It's a process that we're trying to replace it with a process that codifies effective engagement, consistent standards, and coordinated review across all departments. We're trying to simplify and demystify the process for both residents and project proponents, enabling the city to make decisions about its future in a more efficient manner. Transforming development review has wide-ranging implications, so it's important we get this right. I'm excited to work with residents and stakeholders during the coming fiscal year to bring about transformative change in the way we approve projects. Last couple of items, coastal resilience implementation. You see it in the newspaper, you've you drive past it or try to on Morrissey Boulevard, you see it in downtown. We've got it to not only remain good stewards of the property currently in the public real estate portfolio, we also got to look at opportunities to acquire new assets vital to supporting our climate and housing goals. We created the nation's first coastal resilience delivery team so we can implement the fantastic planning work we've already done. This team's focused on closing the 2030 flood paths in Boston by coordinating partners on the state and local level. We're doing this in close contact with the environment section. We have many city-led projects underway, most notably at Long Wharf, Fort Point Channel, Border Street in East Boston, Tinian Beach in Dorchester, and the Navy Yard in Charlestown. So finally, coordination and planning implementation. We have a new group, for at least for the city, that works with us closely, led by Catherine Lust, the Planning Advisory Council, guides and coordinates public investments in the public realm and public facilities by implementing the great planning the city's already done over the years into a group of people that come together to implement the built environment, to implement the physical things called for by those plans. This year, we will continue to build on the foundational work of the first year by collaborating and sharing information more widely and regularly, both internally and externally, creating robust systems to implement plans. And we launched one of our first storyboards about the implementation of Plan Mattapan, improve constituent transparency and accountability, and supporting cross-cabinet priorities. So I think that's the majority of my comments. Tim's going to share a few specific items about the budget, and then we're open to pass it back to you, the chair, Brian, Councilor Worrell.
Thank you, Director Jemison. Good afternoon, councilors. My name is Tim Mathis, and I'm serving as Interim Director of Finance for the Boston Planning and Development Agency. First, I want to thank everyone in the city's finance cabinet for working with us over the last 5 months as we've been transitioning to the city's new budget processes. Specifically, we have appreciated the guidance of staff in the Office of Budget Management throughout the budget development, procurement and navigating the transfer of contracting and purchasing functions, and the Office of Finance in providing numerous virtual and hands-on training opportunities to the BPDA staff on the city's base financial system. We are grateful to the efforts of all individuals that have worked to make this transition possible. Our FY25 recommended operating budget totals $32.7 million, spread across 5 expenditure categories. Personnel services represents 3/4 of the agency's budget and will fully fund the transition of BPDA staff to the city. The remaining quarter allocated to non-personnel services is primarily allocated to contractual services. This will enable the new planning department to deliver on the priorities mentioned by Director Jemison, including Article 80 modernization and coastal resiliency, and also includes funding for advertising and translation services. Thank you for your time. This concludes our presentation, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Now I'll turn it over to my council colleagues in order of arrival. Councilor Santana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief, and for the administration for being here and answering our questions. I'll go right into it. My questions are around squares and streets, and as you all know, this is something that a lot of our communities and residents are talking about and trying to get educated on in terms of the impact and what will actually happen. So, do you have a comprehensive planning document that categorizes basically the current state of different projects? For example, a current state planning document that includes all existing businesses within the designated planning area, including whether the owner qualifies for or has obtained status as MBE, WBE, VBE, or PBE?
So, thank you through the chair to the councilor. So I don't think we have a comprehensive list saying which businesses have been qualified by MBE or WBE. To the first question, I think we do have. Actually, could you repeat the first question to make sure I got it right?
So it was basically, do you have a comprehensive plan document that categorizes the current state?
So every project that has filed or is interested in going forward, has filed the LOI, is present on our website with information about all the applicable dates and timeframes associated with what they proposed. But they would have to have been proposed first in order to be there. That's the way we do provide that information to the public. I think it also has the ability to be sorted by neighborhood, so you can find out which neighborhoods have which projects.
Great, thank you, Chief. Just following up on that question, do you all have like comprehensive goals for each planning area, such as a goal for the number of housing units classified as rental or homeownership, number of bedrooms in the goals units, affordability as defined in the IDP, or truly affordable and deeply affordable, et cetera?
So, to Councilor Santana, so what we have done is we've created these specific 6 different sort of height and density levels, which for each of the squares and streets neighborhoods. And through that, we've sort of identified a specific density. Because those were put into the code, but have not yet been mapped and are subject to neighborhood input processes about what scale the neighborhood would like. We've really tried to avoid setting a specific goal for the number of units. Now, by way of a contrast, Abundant Housing and others have done analyses that indicate sort of ranges of the number of units. I will say from my own personal neighborhood meeting experience on the project that, there's been a range of people saying, we appreciate you not telling us how many units we're supposed to have and then telling us what our plan should be. That's the right approach. To other people saying, I wish you'd tell us a number so we can get there or not get there. I think we've really tried to take the approach that we want to hear from people about what scale they want. Hopefully that gives the answer to the question.
I appreciate that. And right off that, following up on that, can you just speak on just the community approach that you have to this, right? And what is your team doing on the ground to educate, our residents, our organizations? I also want to know just the approach to different neighborhoods, right? I think this is going to impact different neighborhoods differently, and want to make sure that we're taking an approach there. And then also to that point, just on language access, how are we communicating with our non-English speakers? How are we communicating with our local businesses who are going to be impacted here? And again, many of our local businesses are also can incorporate non-English speakers. So can you just speak to that general community engagement, kind of neighborhood by neighborhood approach, and then that language access piece?
Sure. So just sort of the first part of your question had to do with what we're doing to do outreach. So we've been, I think, very serious about outreach. We're really concerned to make sure that that we've got a number of different ways to engage. I think there's historically been an approach to community engagement in the city where there's a microphone and a PA system and a elementary school gymnasium, and that's like how we communicate about development. But many people don't have time to be at those meetings and participate in that way. So what we've been doing is something a little bit different, where we we have teams going to the businesses in the neighborhood during working hours and sort of talking to the businesses. We've also got planning meetings that are being hosted in Spanish. By way of example, in Cleary Square, we're going to have, in support of the Cleary Square plan, we're going to have a meeting. It's in, I think it's Fei the Fan Fan, the restaurant in. I think that restaurant's in Mattapan, by the way. But we're having a couple of meetings hosted in Haitian Creole to make sure people are engaged. I appeared on a radio show last week to talk about this with translators to make sure that we were getting the message out to a much broader community. So we're taking that very seriously and doing those kinds of appearances on radio. Having the meetings where the community congregates at the hours that the community is available is important to us, and then we're going to keep doing it as part of the work.
Great. And then to the piece of is there any approach differently in terms of neighborhood to neighborhood, or is there, can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. I think from the canvassing that the staff members are doing individually, we're learning more about groups that we need to make sure we're reaching. So I would expect Rosendale Square, which has a different demographic population from Cleary and Hyde Park. We're going to try to listen to what folks are saying about language groups in particular that haven't been reached, and make sure that we do. So we're going to take it neighborhood by neighborhood.
Great. Thank you so much, Chief. And obviously, this is I think we have a long way to go in terms of just really educating our residents. But really appreciate you and your team, your accessibility. Deputy Chief Kirk, you've been very accessible. And also want to go on the record of just your Jeff Thomas has just been tremendous. Incredibly accessible to our team, and I really thank for that. So thank you so much, and I look forward to being alongside with you during this process. Please loop me and my office in terms of just how we can be more supportive and really focusing on the education piece to the residents. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yes, big shout out to your whole team, and especially Jeff, always very responsive. Vice Chair Pepin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for being here. It's a very important hearing for me as well, just reiterating some of the topics that Councilor Santana has brought up. Squares and Streets is no surprise is going to be coming to my district. I represent both Rosendale and Hyde Park, Cleary Square and Rosendale Square, right in the heart of that. And when I've been going through the process, I understand that there's still a lot of questions from the residents. I'd like to know what investments and strategic planning have you been doing with the Office of Small Businesses in specific, just because a lot of small business owners are very fearful of being displaced as a result of the Squares and Streets initiatives. Obviously, I am a big fan of just more development, more housing opportunities, more affordable housing, but I also want to preserve the existing small businesses in my district. So I just want to make sure that there is some funds set aside for that specific outreach and engagement with the business owners in both Cleary Square and Rosendale Square.
Yeah, that's a great question, Councilor. Thank you. I think it's a great opportunity to highlight the work first of the Planning Advisory Council and the importance of us moving to city government, because while we're doing really important planning work for the future land use in our communities, it's a whole city effort, and small business supports are part of that, and so we work really closely with the Office of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion. They, going back to initial planning for Squares and Streets several months ago, one of their first points was exactly this one: how are we making sure as we grow Boston, we grow it inclusively. And so we've had Chief Adil and his team alongside us from the start. I think some of the points that Arthur just made about where we're doing the outreach, how we're doing the outreach, doing it in multiple languages, doing it at Haitian and Spanish restaurants in the Squares and Streets areas to include those business owners and attract those populations in. It's front and center for us, and I think we need to make sure as we do upzoning, we're paying attention to who owns the leases, who owns the buildings, and what opportunities exist for small businesses that may not own their property to participate in redevelopment, maybe have a pathway to remaining in the if there is a redevelopment in the space. So there are active conversations we're having both internal to City Hall and out in neighborhoods now.
Okay, well, that's good. I would love to. I'd love to see. I know this is probably a conversation with the Office of Small Businesses more specific, but just their involvement more in collaboration, because I know that your just huge props to Caitlin Coppinger for doing such a diligent job with the community outreach. But I'm pretty sure that she'd appreciate a partnership from the Office of Small Businesses with one of their business liaisons on hand as well. So there could be more of a partnership. Absolutely. There. Yeah. I think not only I would appreciate that, but the community would appreciate that too.
That's great. We'll pass along the thanks to Caitlin, and I think Donald Wright from Chief Adil's team has been closely involved as well. So we'll continue to beef that up and love your support on it as we go.
Sorry, if I could just add, we had I think, in fact, you were there, Councilor. We were together in Mattapan Square where we had a combination of the business folks, ISD, ourselves, all talking about opportunities from the Mattapan plan and the in combination with squares and streets. So I think we're going to do more on that and more of that kind of work. And I think obviously we're going to look for opportunities to fund. I mean, looking at the sort of the success that Chief Adobu's had with with those businesses that they're funding, and space grants and heritage business identification, that's crucial to giving these squares, allowing them to retain the kind of character they have. So we're really focused on it, and we're going to make sure that we get resources allocated.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that meeting. I think that meeting serves as a good example of what community meetings should look like. I would like to see a meeting like that, at least one in Hyde Park and one in Rosendale. I know that there's been different workshops, but there hasn't been one of that caliber yet in both Hyde Park or Rosendale. With yourself there and ISD and members from the Small Business Department. So I would just love to see that. And then I know that the zoning conversation has basically moved forward. We're now in the planning the planning phase of squares and streets and everything. I would love to see to Councilor Santana's point, very strategic outreach to different groups in the neighborhoods, making sure that everyone's getting their voices heard. I know that at the zoning commission hearing, there was amendments proposed by some of the community members that, I think some of them, a lot of the points were very valid, and not everyone was heard. But I think that those conversations can happen in the planning conversation moving forward. So I would just love there to be, for your team to be very, very purposeful about what kind of conversations you're having with the community leaders that specifically propose those amendments. But I just want to advocate for the fact that you are prioritizing that moving forward as the new planning department.
We could not agree with you more in terms of we're trying to do a community-driven approach to planning, and that means reaching people where they're at. That's why we're continuing to invest, Councilor Santana's point, in doing better and stronger community engagement, reaching people where they are, and the work of planning is never done. It's a constant community conversation. So yes, we did take zoning language to our board for squares and streets, but it hasn't yet been mapped, and it's going to be a constant process of continuing to improve it. And so we're here, we're listening, and we want your help and the rest of the council's help to make sure we're listening appropriately and taking the right action. So we agree.
And to be very explicit, we are committing to do the kind of meeting you just described in Rosendale and also in Hyde Park as part of this. And we did receive those comments, and some of them were actually incorporated into what we did. So we're going to be even more purposeful about engaging the specific folks who are behind those questions and make sure they feel like they're part of the process.
Thank you.
2 minutes and 40 seconds.
I have to ask more questions. This question is more in general about the planning department, less so about squares and streets. How are you all going to build out your community outreach team? Are you still going to use the liaisons? Are you still doing the project managers? How is that new? Is there a new setup for that?
Through the chair, we have a community engagement section, which among other things that she's involved with is led by Lacey Rose on our team. We're going to continue to build that out. Their role is really to support the planning efforts that are ongoing. And so we're going to continue to sort of staff that team up. I think, places that have a lot of planning work, people, for example, Jay Ruggiero for Charlestown and East Boston, we had 2 big neighborhood plans underway. People probably saw him every single place that he was. In other neighborhoods where we have less planning happening, I don't think people see as much of those CEMs. We're going to be changing that by thinking about the way people their time is allocated. But we are going to continue to build out the CEM approach. Devin, you want to add anything?
Just wanted to add that we recently hired 3 weeks ago a Spanish language community engagement manager. Just again to Councilor Santana's points, and making sure we're expressly reaching out in Boston's Spanish-speaking population. We might want to build that out further to other language communities as well. But I think it underscores our point around wanting to reach people where they are in culturally authentic ways and really hear their feedback, not just in the usual ways of engaging in the town hall meetings that we'll continue to do, but also meet people locally in their community and incorporate their feedback into community plans.
Yeah, I think that's crucial to the future of just the development of the city. I know that there are specific needs in my district of what they want to see come into the neighborhood. Obviously, not just affordable housing or housing that's affordable, but also specific businesses. Cleary Square specifically, they don't have a sit-down coffee shop where folks can do work and use their computer. They don't have that. So I would love there to, when planning is happening, to incorporate my office as well, so that we know when those meetings are happening, or how can we plug in residents that really have a strong opinion about something, so that they can get their voices heard and hopefully implemented. That's great. But with that, I just wanted to thank you all for the work you do. I know it's not easy, so thank you for being here, but I'll yield the rest of my time. Oh,
Yep, right on time.
perfect.
Council Fitzgerald, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members of the Planning Department, for coming here today. Couple of quick questions, and then we'll get into the budget questions. I noticed there's Article 80 predictability, right, as to go along with the zoning that will create predictability in development. What does the Article 80 predictability look like that's different than what the zoning predictability provides? Sure. In terms of, I can imagine it's the timeline of the Article 80 process itself, but is there more predictability it provides, and if so, what and how?
Sure. Thanks, Councilor Fitzgerald. So I think I'd focus on two examples. So, and I guess I may rely on the fact that both you and I are veterans of the agency. So you may remember, as I do, in the 90s, that somebody would come to your desk if you had not made your timing milestone for your P&Fs being completed, your scoping reports. Those timelines were very important to the development industry. And in all of our canvassing and talking and engaging with them, they need those timelines back. Now, in part, that's changed because there's so many more projects, thank goodness. We've had so much interest in the city. And two, because some of those projects have been much larger in scale, it's been harder to predict how long it's going to take to complete those reviews, and because so many other departments are involved. So bringing those dates back and then having the staff and charged with executing on those dates and making sure that maybe they're a little longer, but people can rely on 45 days after I submit this, I'm going to get this. 90 days after getting this, I'm going to get this. That's the first part. Again, these are non-zoning changes. I'll come back to zoning in a second. A second example is we're also talking actively about can we make mitigation more predictable so that there's a budget and an allocation and a set of activities that the mitigation resources go to. So instead of saying, well, we have to figure out, maybe it's going to be really big, maybe it's going to be medium, maybe it's going to be small. There's a standard for each kind of scale of project. So people can say, there's $1 per square foot that I'm going to allocate. It's going to go to parks, on open space. It's going to go to transportation. And there's a much more certainty about how mitigation is going to be completed. So I think that's all changes to Article 80. I do think the zoning changes are also important. Being able to have zoning that more accurately reflects the kind of growth we're trying to have, as opposed to what we have today, which is much, things are sort of zoned in many cases below what the neighborhood might even look like today. We really want to try to create more predictability there too, and I think that's an exciting prospect.
Appreciate that. A question on when you talk about formalizing the mitigation. Maybe just a rumor, but I've heard, is there also a box that the city councilor, district city councilor of wherever the development occurs gets to decide where a certain amount of money would go as well? Or is that all going to be spoken from for? And if it's not, I'd like to start that rumor.
Okay. So
I only say that because honestly,
no, I understand.
Right, from our point of view, our job is to work with the development team to make sure we can direct resources. And if there's now a code for that, that takes that out of our arsenal of how we can be effective as councilors.
Understood. So I haven't heard that rumor, but in terms of as an idea, let me just talk about it a little bit. I think what I would hope would happen, I do think that the experience of most councilors, I hope, has been that they've got a very loud voice with the agency and the board about, about different matters. But I would hope that once it there's a set of expectations about what amount is supposed to be allocated, that I would expect that whether it's informally or formally, that you have a role in identifying where the resources go. I can't imagine it working a different way because that's the way it works now. But yeah. I think being able to say to your developments in your neighborhood, hey, you're making these kind of allocations to these kind of categories. These are my goals for my neighborhood. It seems like a reasonable thing to say.
I just didn't want to make sure it's not so overly scripted that we could not make those recommendations. In the squares and streets, the community process timeline, I know a couple are going on now, and I know the next one's coming to District 3 at Fields Corner. What is the timeline? Do we have a better understanding of how long we are out in the community with this? Because I remember, if I believe, Mr. Quirk, when we talked about it back in February, it was like, oh, we have a 6-month process afterwards. But I just don't know if it's actually 6 months or 6 weeks at this point.
So the goal is 6 to 9 months, right? I think the objective is to set expectations that we have zoning that's already written, so you have a clear understanding of what could be applied in your neighborhood. We do community visioning. We hear about goals. We do combined education about what the options are, and then we deliver a set of recommendations that we then take feedback on. And so the concept is to be able to do a rezoning in a tactical area in 6 to 9 months rather than 4 years for Plan Charlestown or Plan East Boston that have a much larger scope.
So the 6 to 9 months is beginning to end, right? From the start of the community process to enacting it in zoning should take a max of 6 to 9 months. Yep. Okay, not just the community process is not that long. The entire process. The
entire process is mostly in community. There's lots of feedback during that entire process.
No, understood. Thank you. Into the budget quickly. I know there's something I was looking at. Current charges. I just didn't know what that meant under the FY25 operating budget you have here, from 0 to it goes up to 650,000. What is current charges?
Current charges includes IT services, and that's primarily. And subscriptions, member fees, dues, and a smaller amount of professional development benefits for staff.
So in the FY24, what is that money for? Because this planning department doesn't exist or is about to exist. So the FY24 is for the departments that have come to the city so far?
Go ahead, Devin.
It's the Planning Advisory Council is the existing allocation in the current budget year. So the staff and their budget is our city employees, and then all future of the FY25 is everything that's moving from the BPDA to the city planning department. Does that answer your question?
Okay, Counselor? No. So the number. Sorry. So the 451,126 does match up with the FY24 appropriation under Planning Advisory Council as well. So I just did understand in the first page that that's all Planning Advisory Council. Yeah. And in that case, then, what is the need for the $250,000 increase to the Planning Advisory Council from the last FY24 to FY25?
I'd have to get back to you on the specific proposal. It's a great question, unless you know, Tim.
Additional staff members, I think they're going from 4 to 2. I think they have a fellow. I can get more information on that, though.
I only ask because you guys have heard it as well, and I'm hearing it out there, is what does this Planning Advisory Council do? And if we're giving them $250,000 and we're not sure why, I don't think that only exacerbates that question, right? Of sort of saying, we haven't seen what this council produces yet, and yet we're going to give them $250 more. But I would love to know, please, where the $250 comes from. Thank you very much. I think the operating budget was the same. Yeah, that concludes my questions for now. Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Just want to acknowledge that Councilor Fernandez Anderson and Councilor Weber has joined us. Okay, I just wanted to say it again. I felt like I missed you. Councilor Durkin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, Chief Jemison. Thank you, Devin and Tim, for being here. And I'm grateful for your productive stewardship of the conversation, Chair Worrell. I think we're all still wrapping our heads around what a city planning department does in Boston, and I wanted to focus my first round of questions on zoning updates and the design review process. Also wanted to add, obviously a lot of our zoning, especially in my district, is incredibly outdated. I think, I'm pulling this up right now, but there's a call out in the Back Bay zoning to domestic servants, for instance. So it just shows you how incredibly outdated. I mean, it was for ADUs. We love ADUs, but the fact that there is a quote to, I mean, just shows you how incredibly outdated our zoning is. And I'm just curious, there are a lot of zoning text amendments that are coming before the BPDA and have come before the BPDA in the last year. And it's going to take me a lot of time to start saying the planning department, so bear with me. How does the zoning text amendment, for instance, for citywide childcare, improve our ability to provide increased childcare? I know that there's a cannabis amendment coming up around removing the buffer zone, but maintaining the school buffer zone, which I am in support of, and you'll see me at your meeting this week. And I also spoke in support of the child care text amendment, and I also spoke in support of the Squares and Streets initiative. So I've been very involved in advocating for some of these zoning reform changes. I'm just curious, there obviously are open space. I want to bring up this one as well. There are open space requirements in terms of development, which we are often in affordable cases asking for those requirements to be waived. I'm just curious, sort of, sorry to say this all, in one big, but there's a lot of changes that are being made, and I just, obviously we're trying to do more changes, and I'm just curious sort of how this all fits into the overall vision for the city. And I also want to shout out one of my favorite people who works for the BPDA currently and will work for the planning department, Kathleen Onifer, does such a great job and has been a real resource for me on zoning. So just wanted to talk about that overall vision for zoning and changes.
So I'm happy to start. So I think Councilor, you did a great job of making the case for zoning reform, and I think we've talked a lot about this, and Sarah Brunner wrote a report on how Boston's zoning code is one of the most complex and ultimately out of date, most difficult to navigate and least enforced zoning codes in America, and we're setting on a process to be more predictable in the way that we administer the zoning code, make it easier to navigate, both for people who are proposing development and for communities that are participating and providing feedback. So the couple of examples you listed are great examples on providing much more clarity and predictability around where childcare contribution is required, what that dollar per square foot is, provides a very clear expectation. It's not a negotiated item, it's just something that's the cost of doing business in Boston.
And I forgot to mention, I also testified in support of the affordable housing amendment, which allowed for waivers. I know not a lot of people have been involved in, or weighed in on those changes, but I do think they're incredibly important, for the health of our city, that we be able to sort of consider some of these changes. But I guess what I'm more asking, not to interrupt you, is just more for like the overall vision for like how you're approaching these changes when we have so much to do. And I appreciate Squares and Streets unlocking some of that, but obviously there's a lot of minutia here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I might just offer an overall statement that what we're trying to do is, you can't sort of consume something this large all at once. And so I think what we're trying to do is say, what's the most urgent need in our community right now? It's housing that's close to transportation. And so I think what we're trying to do is not just focus on those things, but Squares and Streets is really an effort to say, in the places that have the capacity to absorb more growth, and in the places that have maybe potential to have a little more housing that's close to the other amenities that make living in Boston great, let's create more opportunity for growth there. And then you're also seeing us do sort of smaller things around the edges, but focusing on the core issue, which is making our squares and streets livable, great places to be. I also think you can anticipate more of a programmatic approach to the remainder of the zoning reforms that we need to undertake. But I think we wanted to prioritize a way to get to create more opportunity for growth in our commercial districts first, because it's a way of getting that growth to happen. ADUs is obviously something important. The child care item you asked about, child care is conditional, was conditional in some parts of the district, and so what we're trying to do is make it so it's allowed everywhere, because that's an important land use for our community and for our citizens. I think you also noted in a couple of different ways other places that zoning is actually crucial to our ability to implement other things. So IDP has historically been like a policy, and now it's zoning. So now it's zoning, and we're using the code to deliver a lot of the other important changes that we think Bostonians are demanding. So, Devin, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, the only thing I'd add to that is Boston zoning code wasn't written overnight. It's not going to be an overnight process to set us on the right course, but as the Chief mentioned, and Amy's team and Kathleen are working very, very hard every day is to set us on a path toward a much more consistently applied and applicable zoning code, and I'd offer maybe a metric of success being zoning board of appeal cases. The zoning board of appeal cases are someone coming before a quasi-judicial body asking for an exception to the rule. There's a huge number of ZBA cases being processed on a monthly basis in our neighborhoods, as you all know. I think one of our goals is to make it much more predictable by sending much less cases to ZBA. So hold us to that as a metric of success.
And now I want to move to office to residential. John Weil does such a great job. He's also a lifelong Beacon Hill resident, so honored to call him a constituent. I do think we could be a lot more successful with office to residential if we did make housing or residential use and allowed use in a lot of our downtown neighborhoods, including the Bullfinch Triangle, which is something I've advocated for. So just adding that to the list of potential changes that we might want to consider to see success in some of our programs that people are looking for and that people think are a good idea.
And Councilor, we had the opportunity to speak with several of your constituents in Bullfinch Triangle, and you were there, who were expressing exactly the same thing. And to tie it back to your previous question about zoning reform, we emphatically agree that it would make a lot of sense for housing to be as of right in the neighborhood, and it's not today. It's just a matter of having the time and capacity to do a thoughtful planning study in the neighborhood, which we don't have the capacity to launch on tomorrow, but we'd love to do in the relatively near future.
Okay, and then I've asked everyone this question, so I'll have to ask it to the planning department as well. I know currently Landmarks is sitting underneath open space and environment. I know there has been some conversation about, where it should live. Whether or not you've been party to those conversations, I don't know, but just curious as we move into, a new, obviously, historic preservation is so important to my district, representing Back Bay and Beacon Hill, but also representing the Bullfinch Triangle, also representing a lot of great buildings in Mission Hill and in the Mission Hill Triangle Architectural Commission and in the Fenway. If I don't shout them all out, Bay State Road, people will notice that I didn't shout them all out, but I think just because this is so important, just curious if you have a take or if there have been conversations around that.
So currently, Landmarks is in the environmental sort of sub-cabinet, and so we've had a chance to talk to the new leader of that and chief of that area, and so right now the status that's intended is for it to remain where it is. But we are obviously closely involved in their work. We always have been, and we're watching and participating in conversations about it all the time. So I think that the mayor's office, the incoming chief of climate, Brian Sweat, have got notions of how to I don't know, settle things down there so that things continue to go the way we need them to.
And just the only thing I'd add to what Arthur just said is it's probably important for us to say on the record that historic preservation is an area where we can improve as a city and as a planning team, and we're really excited. Whatever, sort of where that ends up reporting is less relevant than our work together as we become a city department to enhance our commitment to historic preservation, and again, it goes back to a commitment around predictability. It shouldn't be a fight and an argument over what historic assets should be preserved. There should be a clear plan and a process for that, and we can get a lot better at that.
And we are, on that note, we are doing historic surveys in the downtown plan and in our squares and streets districts to make sure that we recognize and identify those places.
And sorry, I know I'm over time. I just want to say that I have formally advocated for more money for historic preservation, but now I know it won't be going to this cabinet, so not relevant to this conversation. But really appreciate all of your leadership. And excuse me, I have to step out to go to an event in the Fenway, but I really appreciate all of your leadership and thank you for your work.
Thank you, Councilor Dirk. And Councilor Coletta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you. I apologize that I had to run out, but I've been listening in, and just thank you all so much for your work. Integrating the planning department into the city is done. Planning East Boston is done. Planning Charlestown is done. So, no questions. No, I'm just kidding. In a perfect world, that would be the case. But just thank you so much for everything you've done in the partnership over the last year or so. So appreciate that. I've been hearing a lot about squares and streets in the city of Boston. Imagine a rezone of not just your squares and streets, but your residential, your industrial, your commercial spaces. Like, that is what East Boston and Charlestown has gone through over the last 4 to 5 years. And so I'm just really excited to see that the Zoning Commission has codified these new rules that we built together. And then also just today, the ZBA upholding that zoning. So very excited to see that. My first question will start with the Planning Advisory Council. I brought it up in multiple hearings before this, but what is going on there? How is their work influencing this fiscal year's operating and capital budget? How will they impact future investments in our city? And are there deliverables that they've been instructed to produce? And if so, on what timeline? And we'll start there.
So I think we're over the 6-month mark now for the Planning Advisory Council. I think they were really got it, started having their first meetings last summer, fall. What the Planning Advisory Council is, and if you answer some of Councilor Fitzgerald's questions from earlier, it's more of an internal coordinating body. We have a sort of precursor to our move to the city is acknowledging the fact that planning is a cross-disciplinary function that exists in many cabinets in the city of Boston under many different leaders, and we need to make sure that those are all working in coordination toward a set of common goals, and establishing those goals, that convening is what the Planning Advisory Council has helped us do. I think a couple of their deliverables, Arthur mentioned one that was on a full display at one of the mayor's recent coffee hours in Mattapan. We completed planning for Plan Mattapan almost a year ago and got into zoning. The Planning Advisory Council is tracking on a month-to-month basis the implementation of those planning objectives and has created a nice public-facing story map that tells that story and seeks feedback from constituents. Another thing that they've been digging into, and one of the reasons why they've asked for this increase in this budget is to dig more thoroughly into the topic of preventing displacement as we continue to grow the city, and looking at that's a very cross-departmental topic. This displacement is an arts and cultural issue, it's a housing issue, it's a small business issue, as Councilor Pepin mentioned. So digging into doing research, best practices in the field, coming back with recommendations, gathering recommendations for all the cabinets that are involved, and bringing those forward to both the planning department's planning work, but also the implementation of other cabinets as well.
Is Catherine's position, is that funded through the mayor's office or is that through the planning department?
We should confirm this, but I believe in the FY24 budget, it was in the mayor's office. In the no, actually, sorry, that's not true. In the FY24 budget, it was in the planning cabinet, but it was the only item in the planning cabinet. And then it will continue to be in the planning cabinet.
Okay, is her team going to grow? Okay,
Yes.
by how much?
2 positions, I think.
Yeah.
2 positions. All right, thank you. Same question for the Coastal Resilience Task Force. What's going on there? Do they have deliverables? And I don't think that was really answered the last time. Like, are they going to produce a report that we can then review?
So are you asking about the PAC? I do believe we're planning to have them produce an annual report.
Yep, and for both.
And the coastal resilience.
Okay, so annual report for the PAC, we're going to start working on it. For the coastal resilience team, I don't know if we have a report planned, but I think we should produce one. I think we've had a lot of great work done by that group. Have you, just by way of background, do you feel like we've explained what the group does well enough yet?
To me, yes, but if you'd like to
Okay.
do that here very
So,
quickly.
okay, so 2030 is rapidly approaching, and there are places in the city that are particularly vulnerable to the level of potential flooding that would exist at that time. Places like Tenian Beach in Dorchester, places like Border Street in East Boston. We have the plans, we have ideas about how to prevent that need capital. So where we own the land, we are taking steps like in the Navy Yard, and where we don't, we are partnering with state and federal programs to create the resources required to install the improvements that are going to protect those parts of the city. So what we've done is taken a team of people that is a combination of people at the BPDA as well as partnership with people in the environment to advance the plans that attract those capital dollars. I think the answer to your question, Councilor, is that we don't, I think at this time, have an annual report planned for that group, but I think we can certainly commit to producing one.
Yeah, Climate Ready Boston has some reports online, and I've seen great reports from the team on them. We have a bi-weekly with them where they talk about here are all the projects that need to be completed by 2030 and the status of each. To the extent that is not publicly available, it's something we'd love to work to make publicly available and can continue to talk to you about.
Could I also say one very specific thing to you, Councilor Coletta? Thank you for your leadership in working on the ordinance. I mean, beyond the work you did on the plans, thank you for taking such a leadership role on the ordinance with some of your colleagues here to make sure that there was an appropriate dialogue and eventually a consensus was built.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Chief. Your call out of the Environment Department is leading me to my next question. So the mayor recently announced Brian Sweat as the Chief Climate Officer, which is very similar to the Chief Resilience Officer position that I have been calling for the last 2 years, just given the cross-departmental coordination that's necessary, both within the Planning Department and the Environment Department. So I'm really excited for his leadership. But given that his role is kind of reimagined, I think how will the partnership be different, given the fact that this is a new department and he's not just the Chief of Environment, Energy, and Open Space, he's the Chief Resilience Officer. And what have you been told to continue or not continue given his appointment?
Yeah, and so sharing your enthusiasm and excitement for Brian joining the team. Chief Sweat joined the team and had the opportunity to work with him in the prior administration. He's a great champion for energy, environment, and open space issues. I think he's been exceptional. In terms of what we're going to continue to work on together, things like net zero carbon zoning. Him and his team bring a unique perspective to that. It's a perfect example of a cross-cabinet issue where we have the authority through zoning to establish zero net carbon emissions, but some of the much more technical aspects of that in terms of embedded fossil fuel analysis, embedded carbon analysis, and carbon offset payments. I mean, those are really niche and important energy policy issues that I know Brian and his team know a lot about. So that's the type of partnership Travis Anderson, our team, also knows quite a bit about. We want to continue to do. If that answers your question.
It does, kind of. Thank you so much for that. And I have, I don't know how much my timing is, but this is specifically as it relates to the contracted services line item. I got a little impatient with the rollout of Article 80 and what the work was being done last year. So I filed a hearing order in January, and then shortly thereafter, there was a more public-facing communication strategy about what has been done. And so I'm grateful for that, but wondering about contracted services and how much of that is going to be allocated for community engagement on matters like squares and streets and Article 80, and I apologize if this question was already asked.
With respect to the contractual services line, the existing Article 80 contracts, of which there are two, will remain on the BPDA side until they are fully spent down. There is a budget for continuation of Article 80 through a pilot program that's contemplated in this budget. And then with respect to community engagement, that contractual services line is also where you can find advertising and translation services expenses.
Okay, so it's going to remain in the BPDA side for Article 80 specifically until it gets bought down, and then there's a new line item for advertisement and marketing?
That's just reflecting the transition of those expenses to the city. The Development Review Division also has within their contractual services sufficient funding. They're contemplating additional consulting services for Article 80.
Okay.
This is a bit of a transition year for us, being our first year as a city department. So things that we have already procured that have contract spend into FY25, we're not going to re-procure them to become city contracts. We're going to spend those contracts down, but any new contract that we'll be procuring in FY25, we'll procure on the city side for planning and community engagement.
Thank you, and that's my time. Thank you so much for your partnership.
Thank you. Councilor Braden, you have the floor.
One of the big issues we're concerned about is just thinking about compliance monitoring. I know it's not something we talk a whole lot about, but I do know that we've sort of uncovered some things that were in the closet when I think it's probably you're clearing out some cupboards over there, and we're discovering money and community benefits that were not dispersed in a timely way. I know there was an audit way back, or a report done in 2014 about agreed upon procedures for compliance with internal policies, procedures, protocol. We have a huge number of projects that we're monitoring, and there's a huge number of community benefits attached to those. And I'm just wondering, I see you have two people in your personnel department identified for compliance. The things that we're really concerned about is that there was an identified deficiency 10 years ago, and have you improved that in the meantime? And how is this going to move forward? I think having really good compliance, monitoring our inclusionary development policy payments, the lease equity participation agreements, and then also the deed restrictions, and having a good understanding of expiring use and the sunsetting of IDP units, and also even just ensuring that IDP units that are occupied initially, that they continue to be occupied, and that the turnover keeps moving, and that they're not sitting vacant. I'd love to have your thoughts on that for starters.
Thank you, Councillor. It's a great question, and it really ultimately is about ensuring that we protect the trust that community members place in us to enforce these agreements that are struck with community. I think it's probably easiest to describe our compliance operation in two categories: housing compliance, and then those things that are not housing and community benefits. The housing compliance function is actually leaving the planning cabinet, and in this budget will be fully reflected in the housing cabinet. And so the staff of the BPDA that have performed our housing compliance function from a management perspective transitioned into the Mayor's Office of Housing at the end of the fall. They're still BPDA employees, but as they become city employees on July 1st, they'll move to being Mayor's Office of Housing supervisor, so that the team performing the compliance for housing and the team doing the compliance with inclusionary zoning is appropriately the housing leaders for the City of Boston. So I've worked really closely with Sheila and team, but I'm happy to answer more questions there, but I just want to make sure we're clarifying, we're kind of putting that compliance function where it belongs. And they also award all the funds associated with inclusionary development payouts. On the non-housing side, I think there's two pieces to that are really important. ensuring that we collect the funds in a timely basis, the bills are paid, and then that they are quickly put back out for community use. And a lot of those sort of 2014, 2015 reports had a lot to do with like, hey, are you even sending the bills? There's been a lot of work done. I want to credit Teresa Paulinas and Erin Hallquist on her team, who have spent enormous time thinking about this, ensuring that those bills and collections are made when they're contractually required. And then we've been, to your point, it doesn't do anyone any good if those monies are sitting in a BPDA bank account. What matters is delivering for communities. So, Erin, there's lots of different ways the money is delivered. In some ways, it's intended to go directly to communities facing nonprofits. Erin and his team run competitive bidding processes for those. And in other cases, it is actually contemplated to be city construction, roadway improvements, et cetera. So our role is to create an MOA with the receiving department and get that money over to that department as quickly as possible to perform the construction. And we've been making steady month-by-month progress of bringing that. Then we'd love to have no money in our bank account associated with putting back, and we're getting closer to that.
Or you have a happy surprise and a lot of money turns up all of a sudden. Where did this come from? Let's see. One issue that we have, with these community agreements, that it seems that we make a community agreement or a cooperation agreement with a developer, and they're going to work with BTD, and they're going to improve public realm, and they're going to improve the streets, and then they go away and forget about doing their project for 10 years, and we're sitting waiting for street improvements to happen that were attached to this community benefit from a developer that's not moving ahead with the project. And it means that we're stuck in this sort of limbo. And I think in Alston Brighton in particular, we have a lot of projects like that. And we have projects as well that where the developer comes along and says, we're going to really improve the look of your neighbourhood because all these buildings are underutilised and they're a blight on the neighbourhood. And frankly, they're still laying vacant and they're just looking like bad. So, how do we how do we keep this moving? Like it's really not acceptable.
So, Councillor, you've been very persistent about this question. I appreciate it. So, I think last time we talked about it, I was sort of talking about how we're discussing this in Article 80 reform. Well, we are, but in the process of doing that, we've also become clear to us that there's a policy already on the books that says after a developer hasn't pursued what they're doing for over 3 years, we have the right to we have some new leverage with them. So what I'd love to do, maybe separate from this, because this is more of a policy question, is talk with you about the projects where you have that concern and start identifying what they need to do and using the leverage we have. But more broadly, I think this has been a big challenge, especially in your neighborhood where you have a large number of approved projects that don't, where you have improvements that haven't taken place. I think we're beginning to look at this in the climate of, in the context of the climate improvements, where there has to be some time frame where the improvements are made, because even if the development hasn't gone forward, and I think this is a great place for us to start working on that for things that aren't just climate related, because I very much understand what you're describing. People agree to do certain things, but their project is stalled and it doesn't happen for years. Meantime, that crosswalk still hasn't been painted and other things haven't taken place. So I'm with you. And
the other thing that happens is they flip the project and they're off into the moonlight, and the next person who bought the project is not in any hurry to do anything. The other question I had was just looking at your GIS and your demographer and your research, like thinking about one of the great benefits of the BPDA produced and the Menino administration, incredible volume of incredible reports that were very detailed and give us a good insight into the city and who is here. And so I really feel that the planning department supports all the other city departments in helping with their strategic planning and their thoughts about capital investment, etc. So how does that all fit together? Like you've got, I think you've got one GIS. Is it one person? One person for GIS.
I think we have, Tim might know for sure, but I think we
Yeah,
have
no,
three or
it's
four.
not a biggie, but I'm just thinking that like that's an important function of a planning department in a city. In a city, you've got one developer, apps, GIS, SQL apps developer, and then you have a wonderful demographer coming over with you, and then yeah. Thinking about the compliance issue, you've got two specialists to do that. Like, I'm just thinking, there's some of this stuff that really make a difference to other departments. It's really important. So, are we have a robust enough? Like, I've harped on this before.
Right. So I think actually, I'm going to draw a little bit of a distinction between the research team and the GIS team. The research team, I completely agree with you there, and Alvaro has a very talented team of highly trained demographers and economists who are, in fact, a resource to all the departments. They happen to be housed in the planning cabinet, but they do research reports across all of city government on a regular basis. The GIS team, the city also has it, the DeWitt also has a GIS team. One of the, I think, distinctions between the planning department GIS team and the city central GIS team is that planning department GIS team is very focused on planning department functions, because so much of our work on a day-to-day basis is map and geographic based. So they're doing an analysis for our planners and for our researchers and producing maps for discussion with community members. So there's a really important reason why we have this in-house GIS function, and happy to make, of course, Alla and her team do incredible work and are often called in to support other requests and they're happy to do it, but their primary role is to be a service to the planning function.
How are we doing for time?
That was your time, but I'll give you one more question.
Oh, thank you. You're too kind. There's one other question. Now I've got more time and my brain stopped. Coastal resilience. I know that's a really big priority, like rising sea levels are a real thing. Out our way, we're very concerned about internal inland flooding, and we're on the Charles River floodplain. When we have a storm that drops 2 inches of rainfall in a couple of hours, we're in trouble. But that's just a small storm. Like, if you have something that hangs over us and drops 10 or 15 inches in 24 hours, we're really in deep trouble. Are there any conversations about like resilience, not only at the coastal level but further upstream, like with also our upstream neighbouring municipalities?
Absolutely. I think that's something that our planners who work in this space bring up all the time, that we can do that. Well, if we are successful in the ambitious task of building important coastal flood resilient measures, that doesn't prevent inland flooding, right, or storm-driven flooding. So there needs to be systems and structures that are addressing that as well. And that's a partnership with the Environment Department and also Boston Water and Sewer in doing that work. I think that one of the reasons why we created this coastal function specifically is there's a large construction component to that is public sector construction that ties into the BPDA's real estate tools and functions. Mm-hmm. So knowing that there's a need to seek funding and perform public construction and do public-private partnerships on specifically the coastal function, we created a team that's specific to that. But you are absolutely correct in highlighting that is not the full scope of resilient efforts.
I think where the two things intersect is at the dam on the Charles, and then going into the harbour, like and then the neighbouring communities of Watertown, and because we used to be coastal, we used to be tidal the whole way up to Watertown, so the dam is just the need for it. Is it high enough? Will it withstand challenges? You know, those are all, and those are Army Corps of Engineers questions. Those questions.
Yes, and Chris Osgood and Katie Miller and others, I think, are probably the best people to direct those questions to. As someone who walks across that dam on my commute home on a regular basis, I often think of the same thing. I know that there is a flood path that includes the dam, and at a certain point, maybe 2070, there will need to be work done to improve the resilience of the dam itself. But the precise status of that work, I would defer to some of our colleagues.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And my apologies. I want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Councilor Flynn. Council President Louis Jen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleagues for asking some really great questions. I want to thank all of you for being here. My office works very closely with you, Devin, on a number of issues, and I don't know if I've ever publicly thanked you for how accessible you are and how ready you are to help us understand some things. Like, oftentimes we're brought in when there's been already layers of development or when things have already, and trying to understand where things really are procedural, like what the procedural posture is. And so I just want to thank you for how accessible you've been to our office. I have some questions regarding both Plan Mattapan, but also as we're doing this transition. I was at the South End coffee hour yesterday and was approached by a resident, Dr. Siegel, who wanted to make sure that we are getting the Article 80 process right and that we are finding ways to bring in community even earlier, not to be a barrier, but to help as early as possible really develop these ideas alongside developers, alongside the city. So just I told him that I would bring it up, and so I'm bringing it up, but would love if you have anything to respond to that about how we're thinking about bringing community in really as allies as early as possible in the Article 80 process to really help build the vision that we have for our neighborhoods.
So, thank you, Council President. So we're very interested in doing that as well. I'll give an example. So today, there's something called the letter of intent process, where a developer might have a desire to propose a project, and they usually spend a lot of time in a very informal sort of almost intelligence gathering operation and trying to talk to the people who they think are neighborhood leaders about what should happen before they file an LOI. And so the letter of intent is sort of a new kind of innovation a few years back, designed to kind of create more opportunity for that. What we're going to do there is, through the Article 80 changes, we're hoping to create a more formal system of making the developers talk to sort of a more formalized set of community groups before they file their LOI, and then also make sure that some basic design issues like how people or where people or cars might enter a building is sort of determined before an LOI is filed, because those are usually flashpoints which, if they're not resolved early, can be very expensive.
Dr. Siegel made it a point to say that he like bringing community before the LOI process.
So that's what we're focused on.
And I just also want to mention it because I've seen it before. I was a counselor on the community advocacy side when it came to projects that were in the Article 80 process, that it's important that it's not just the community groups that we think will be favorable to the project or that they will be able to gain some community benefit. It's also really important to bring in, especially if they're identifiable, groups that we believe are going to be in opposition, because oftentimes what happens, what I have seen happen, not to speak about often, what I have seen happen is, what it comes across as like buying the silence of a community group, or it prevents coalition building among community advocates because one or two groups have been taken care of while there are others that are still in opposition. So I want to make sure that we're able to address that.
That's front of mind for us as well. It can't just be people who support you. It's got to be a wider range. I'd also say that as we're doing new zoning in neighborhoods, that the voice of citizens is also important there, because that creates the environment in which the developer begins to conceive projects. So inviting everyone to participate in things like squares and streets and other planning efforts is another thing I would want to highlight.
Thank you, Chief. I'm on board totally with, the idea of needing to redo our zoning. Interestingly enough, if I'm not mistaken, Squares and Streets actually adds pages to our zoning code. Is that correct? Even when we're trying to functionally it adds, but it is for the intent is to simplify.
Yes.
Yeah. And I say that because I think the chair stated that there was a nod given to taking beekeeping out of zoning, and I think there's more of that I would like to see. And I know there's 4,000 pages, it's really long, ways, more things that we can do to functionally reduce that, to make it, because it's hard for me to digest as a city councilor in my second term, but still a relatively new city councilor. As a lawyer, it's just hard to digest it all. So simplicity should be and like, what are the barriers to that?
Well, the zoning code, it's interesting. It's based on something from 1965, a base code, and then it has all these additional articles, which were frankly negotiated in detail with neighborhoods in the 80s and 90s, and in many cases reflect a level of development that wasn't even there in the 80s or 90s, and certainly isn't there now. And so these individual neighborhood articles are really, they might have, a fun example is one of them might have a different definition of retail than another neighborhood. So because they were, again, individually negotiated with the neighborhood groups effectively, they don't have some of the benefits of standardization. They have the customized benefit of reflecting the neighborhood's views at that time, but they don't have the sort of benefit of having more standardized approaches, or even zoning that really reflects the density that might exist in the neighborhood. So what we're trying to do is make it more functional and create a little bit more standardization, trying to retain the uniqueness of places while also making it easier to, the eventual thing easier to use. A question was asked earlier about this, why are we starting here? I think the need to have housing in places that are already well used by neighborhoods was the gist of it, and the reason we started there. But as you can see, we're also using the code to accomplish things like IDP, to accomplish things like reducing emissions in buildings through net zero carbon zoning. So I think what we're hoping to do later this year is lay out a broader, more programmatic schedule for taking down the different parts of the code that are making it more complicated. But we felt the most important thing to start on was how do we create opportunities for growth in housing in places that are well used by people.
Yeah, and that wasn't. I think Squares and Streets, I think it's a smart approach. I think if you go to Clary Square and you talk to Antonio Bakari, the owner, and you talk to Joe, and he wants more foot traffic, I think, and you get more foot traffic in our squares. And I think that I'm not. So I think Squares and Streets is the right way. I'm just saying, like, zoning is complicated, and how in one way it's like simplifying it, but another way functionally it has made zoning longer. I just want to elevate Plan Mattapan. I think I heard you mention it earlier. Supportive of Plan Mattapan and the vision that it has for really trying to look at what the future is for Mattapan, while also protecting the home ownership that exists in Mattapan, the Black home ownership especially. And I'm just wondering, like, what is the current status of us moving forward with Plan Mattapan? Chief Jemison, we also talked about something that we haven't been able to resume, I'm saying it here so that we can resume it, but talking to the business owner, the property owners in Mattapan Square about what we need to be doing in Mattapan Square in terms of, like, building housing or building partnerships with the property owners in Mattapan Square, who aren't the ones who are running the businesses, who tend to be, the landowners tend to be a bit more reticent about where we want to go as a city. And I just think it's crucially important, even though we haven't done the next step of what we want to do, to really sit down with them and think about what the future of the square looks like and how the city can help, whether it's building up or changing the commercial look of the square. So just putting that to you and
Sure.
want you to respond in any way.
Sure. So if I recall correctly, in early March, I think we had a meeting at the health center that was focused on this exact issue, laying out both the things that had already been approved in Plan Mattapan and the new zoning that was coming, and sort of highlighting sites where there would be the potential for growth. I should also mention that we just went live with something that we've been working on with the PAC, that's sort of a story map of Plan Mattapan and how it's going to be, we expect it to be implemented. It's the first time we've done that with one of our plans for implementation. And I think we had, if I'm not incorrect, I believe last week we had a meeting with Chief Idowu's group about specific sites that we could identify for for housing growth in the square. So we're working on it. But I'm happy to do another one of those sessions. I just made a commitment to Councilor Pepin about doing something similar, because something similar where we actually go through the sites in the neighborhood, talk to owners explicitly about their opportunities to take advantage of the new zoning.
Yeah, I think that'd be great for in that meeting at the health center where the property owner is present.
Yes.
Okay, so if there's another iteration of that, I think that's where and when we look at Plan Mattapan, I think that's where it was going. Also, Plan Mattapan also talked about our senior homeowners and talked about working with community land trusts they presented us with some innovative ideas about how community land trusts can help our seniors age in place when they're staring down property taxes and other things that would otherwise they'd sell their property, which would open up the possibilities of gentrification or changing the neighborhood. Has there been more work done on that front?
So one thing we have charged our team members at the PAC with is helping us tackle this question about displacement and anti-displacement policy. I think we've got a good start on the specific ways to advance that, both in Article 80 and to some extent in zoning as well. So, I mean, I'm expecting that during the process of the completed launch of the first plans that we'll begin to start talking about that more explicitly. But we've got our legal team working on it. We have both the teams in Article 80 and in planning working on it, and I think it's coming together.
Okay, thank you. I think that's my time. So I thank you all for the work that you're doing, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to.
Thank you. Councilor Fernandez-Anderson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just start with some straightforward questions and then go into more programmatic questions that I have. Can you tell me what is BPDA planning to do with escrow funds currently sitting in its accounts?
Similar to Councilor Breeden's question about this earlier, if we have funds in an escrow account, our priority is to spend them for the reasons that they're there as quickly as possible. They generally end up in each collection of funds that go into escrow have a agreement in place as to why the funds are being collected that were negotiated with the community during the Article 80 process. So if it's for a public works improvement, then we need to get that money as quickly as possible over to the streets cabinet to perform the work. Meanwhile, if it's for awards to local nonprofits, we need to run that RFP and get that into the hands of nonprofits.
Thank you. Has BPDA repurposed any of the funding for their own project?
No, we do not spend community benefits funds on our own efforts.
And so of the reserves, or the BPDA reserves, how are you determining when it's appropriate to tap into that?
So I can start, and if Tim wanted to jump in. In general, we run a balanced budget. This is, to some of the earlier questions, we're it's transition year as we move our major expense areas to the City of Boston, the Planning Department. But on the BPDA side, to the extent that there is ever any additional money at the end of the fiscal year, we have generally allocated that to the BPDA's capital budget. We have about a $400 million capital needs assessment that's funded only, generally not funded through the city, generally funded only through BPDA revenues. So we set it aside to do those important construction projects in our neighborhoods.
How do you prioritize those projects?
It's a couple metrics the team uses. Public safety is a really important one. Neighborhood and community benefit and return on investment, right? Will it prevent?
You said neighborhood and community benefits?
Yeah, neighborhood and community benefits. And then the final is return on investment, right? Will making this improvement prevent other expenditures, that type of thing?
Is this transparent at all? Do people know what they could potentially access?
A lot of our capital budget is spent on our own real estate, and we do in places like the Marine Park, that we work really closely with the Tenants Association on prioritizing investments in that neighborhood. They have a lot of transportation and maritime construction projects they want us to run. We're in constant communication with with that neighborhood through the Tenants Association to have those discussions. Other neighborhoods like the Charlestown Navy Yard, there's significant capital needs in the
Any in
infrastructure.
D7?
Pardon?
Any in D7?
I do not believe there is a lot of capital project need on the property we own in remember, this is only for BPDA property. The properties that we own in D7 are generally, as you know very well, vacant lots, and our priority is to work with you and other community members to put those into active use through disposition and public-private partnership. So that's not really a capital budget item. That's
Would
more
it
of
be considered a community benefit to like mitigate like whatever toxins the land has and prep it for a developer?
that we're doing that at the parcel P3, and we've performed that expenditure. I'm not aware of a lot of other.
Do you have the amount that you're putting into P3?
I don't know if you know, Tim, off the top of your head. I want to say it was just under $1 million, but I don't remember.
Thanks. So we're aware of like neighborhood development funds. They do not sit on your balance sheets. These funds are specific for projects that impact economic development, right? So what are the plans to incorporate these monies into your budget, since we don't see the money listed here?
I'll start, and Tim, if you know more about NDF, please jump in. So NDF, Neighborhood Development Fund, is a fund that is recycled dollars from a particular federal program from the 60s and 70s, and then as the investments that were made are repaid back, it goes into this fund that is jointly managed by the Mayor's Office of Housing and the BPDA. To the best of my knowledge, I don't believe there is a lot of money left in that account, but I'd go, Tim.
I'd have to get you the current balance for that, but I can send that to you.
Thank you so much. And for housing restricted revenue, Tim, if you can help out. I'm aware of a project for 100, I think it's 100 Shawmut Ave, that brought in $15 million that has been sitting on your books for the same time. Is that revenue included in your budget? Is it passed through? Do you all get a percentage of that, or has interest been earned on that amount?
Those are good questions. It's for a specific project, but correct, that those dollars are currently restricted on our balance sheet, and but I can get you answers to your questions on more detailed.
So, okay, could you, through the chair, could you send me the rest of the question as well? And so, in which fiscal year do you plan to releasing the funds from restriction?
Which funds?
The funds specific, do you have to get back to me on the two?
For 100 Shawmut, or I would have to get back to you. I'm not deeply familiar with that specific project.
Okay, thank you. For your capital projects, how much will be spent in designating historic monument areas?
Would that, I'd have to get that designation, but if that's including the Charlestown Navy Yard, we have significant projects currently underway and that have already been authorized by the board. But I can get you a more detailed breakdown of those specific projects by dollar amount.
And it's a requirement. These are the leases that we collect revenue from in the historic monument area in the Charlestown Navy Yard need to be recycled back into historic preservation in the Navy Yard. So, for example, we're running a $2 million historic preservation project along the fence outskirts of the Navy Yard. That's a priority project on the BPDA side this year, as an example.
Thank you. Do the revenues of these properties break even, or?
Does
the revenues exceed the expenses?
In general, I don't know the answer for the historic monument area specifically, but so I can answer more generalized to the Navy Yard in and of itself. Yes, the revenues from the Navy Yard exceed the costs of operating the Navy Yard, and the revenues from the Marine Park greatly exceed the cost of operating the Marine Park. That's where we get all the dollars to do the $50 million plus of planning and development work across all of Boston's neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you. Is interest earned from restricted funds BPA collects from developers?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. And I guess is that, the second part to that question, is that interest accounted for as new revenue in your budget? And are there restrictions on the interest when allocating in your budget?
Again, I'd have to get back to you on that. We've seen, similar to the city, greater revenues and interest this year.
Great.
But I'd have to get back to any specific restrictions on those dollars.
Thank you. How much interest is earned annually just from your investments?
So far this year, we're at $2 million, but that's significantly more than in prior years. We have in 2019, our board adopted a cash investment policy that was modeled after the city's. We invest very conservatively in treasury bonds, CDs, and plan to continue that conservative approach going forward.
Thank you. I'd be interested in those investments. I'm just curious so I can have like a clearer picture of what you guys work with. Please explain to us how you budgeted for your capital reserve.
Go for it.
When the BPDA has experienced surpluses in previous years, we have dedicated that towards our capital reserve. Right now, the balance is $16.5 million, and that helps support our ongoing capital projects.
What percent did you use to increase revenue over the years? Or, I mean, you're new, right, Tim? So, okay.
But I can probably answer
Thanks, Tim.
that question. So then, sorry, I want to go back to the previous one because it's, I think, important to put the $60 million in context. So we did a capital needs assessment a couple of years ago for BPDA-owned assets. That capital needs assessment came back around $400 million. About 150 of that is coastal resilience investments along the Navy Yard and Long Wharf. And in the Marine Park, the remainder are properties that we own and operate. And so we need to, through thoughtful saving and borrowing on the PPDA side, make sure that those capital needs are met over time. It's great that we have $16 million in a bank account ready to go against the construction projects we're actively running, but that's a small percentage of the overall $400 million.
Since Chinatown, and I mean, Chinatown is getting a lot of investment in terms of like this climate resiliency stuff, but I think the next priority is Lower Roxbury. Do you have any interest in climate resiliency projects in Roxbury?
Yes, absolutely. I think, and a big part of our planning team's work, a big part of the environment department's team's work, local heat island effect, and the dangers of climate change affect not just coastal populations, and it's a big issue in Roxbury. So it's been part of local planning we've been doing. It's part of the Resilient Boston efforts from the environment department, but it may be a little bit more tangential from the capital conversation we're having right now because we don't own a lot of property where we'd have capital investments in Roxbury.
There's like part 2 and 3, right, coming?
Yes. But I'll give you time for one more question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did you account for variables in your expenses?
Can you elaborate?
In terms of, so maybe the next question can help. If a bid comes over to for work related projects, for example, what approach do you take in terms of like figuring out the variables?
I think that happens not infrequently. We certainly have to talk to the project management team and potentially review the scope. Shift timing of projects is probably the most significant way to deal with that.
Okay.
I think
No, I respect my chair.
Thank you. Councilor Weber, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Let's see. So you may have covered this at the beginning, but Chief Jemison, we spoke a lot about merging planning into the city, and we heard about how we can we'll finally have some insight into the priorities of the department and the budget. So I guess first, as it's laid out, in terms of money allocated to administration, planning and zoning, design, real estate development review, how does that reflect your priorities, and what should we be interpreting from this, the budget allocations to the different aspects of the planning department?
So, through the chair, I guess I'd say that this really reflects the hard work of the staff who are the people who drive forward all the planning and development work in the agency, and the vendors, contracted vendors who help them with the work. It really reflects, to a great degree, this is a fully staffed planning department that's prepared to implement the initiatives that we went through earlier. And I think we're almost at a stage where we've got the full complement of staff that we need to do it. So I think if you're looking for how our values are in the budget, I think if I'm thinking about other planning departments, often there's a little more reliance on vendors than staff. And I think we've really said Boston resident staff is maintaining and supporting a Boston resident staff is an important part of how we're going to plan and develop the city.
Okay, yeah, looking at development review at 3.9 million, I think I expected that to be higher, but I don't know. A lot of my constituents, that's how they interact with the BPDA. And can you explain why that number is lower than other numbers, or why it's at that level?
Sure. As Devin mentioned earlier, this represents year one of our transition. Our existing active contracts will remain and continue to spend down on the BPDA side. So the contract number on the planning department side reflects that transition process. Over time, we expect that to grow as projects and priorities shift.
Sorry, Chief, did I misread
I just
something?
want to make sure, are you talking about the allocation of dollars to different divisions?
I'm looking at your,
But you're talking about this
the last
row
page
or
of
this
your
row?
presentation. I'm looking at the FY25 recommended number.
Okay.
Is
Yep.
that, so I mean, when I look at that,
personnel or non-personnel?
well, I'm just looking at and then
Sorry, I was looking at a different detail.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes. Well, I want to go back to my comment earlier. If we want to have planning and the sort of zoning that results from planning begin to take a stronger role in the way that we grow the city, which is absolutely our intent, we've got to have more planning staff. If we're going to replace that code we talked about, advance the squares and streets work, ADUs, the other things, we've really got to bolster the planning staff. And so I think we've added significant people power to that section, and we're expecting to. I do want to hear more about your concerns about DR, though.
No, I'm looking at this, for the first time, and we're talking about, this body's ability to influence how BPDA or the planning department is going to approach issues we have in the city. So I'm just trying to understand, looking at these numbers, just sort of from a bird's eye view, how I should interpret that to, as what I think you're alluding to it. Look, we need to boost planning, and that's why there's money in there. And so I'm trying to understand.
Absolutely.
Why.
I mean, can I add just one more sentence? I think you're asking a great question. So, historically, the city has worked very much in kind of and I say this without any, prejudgment, sort of a little bit more of a bespoke, individually negotiated boutique approach to every development. And Some of that's great, and we need to retain it, but I think there's a relationship between if we have better zoning that's more reflective of where we want to be, the focus and energy of the development review section can be on those really significant opportunities to unlock really huge development resource and cash resources for the city, and the sort of day-to-day development of housing can be simplified and have less complication. I think we're trying to achieve that balance, and so to achieve that balance, we need a lot more planning.
Okay, yeah, a couple quick questions about squares and streets. How do you view the impact of, there's more as of right building if Squares and Streets achieves its goals? How is that going to impact, or interact with the IDP, our ability to get, affordable housing built?
Sure. So my quick answer to that would be that today, if you would like to build a 4-story, apartment house, in one of our great squares or corners in the city, you have all the regular challenges of the economics of the project, acquiring the property, finding ways to retain the businesses that are important there. But you also have the likelihood that zoning is going to mean that it's really difficult for you to do that. And you have to go through a series of hearings to sort of get approval to do it. I think our hope is that when Squares and Streets is done, and it's as of right to have a 4-story or a 3-story residential building in a square, the resources and time that go into all the additional hearings beyond the BPDA and other hearings you have to have can be spent on making it faster delivery of the affordable units that IDP calls for when it goes into full effect later this year. That's what I think the trade-off is. Hopefully more housing delivered more quickly, and when market housing is delivered more quickly, it helps control price.
Okay, and then so the Squares and Streets process has been going on in Rosendale Square and Hyde Park. And what have you learned so far? Have you changed how you're going to sort of go through this process as you get to other areas of the city?
I think great news. I think we have learned a lot. I think that if there's one thing we've absorbed, it's that we need to have more community engagement of a wider range of people. In working in the neighborhoods and the meetings I've attended, there's been a lot of, first I think there's a lot of sort of honestly suspicion and concern, but I think that's turned into curiosity and a desire to participate. I think one of the challenges is that when the zoning was done before, there was a very sort of specific kind of approach to engagement, and I think we're trying to widen that. And so I think we really need to make sure we're doing both, like widening it to create more opportunities for more different kinds of people. Maybe can't go to a night meeting at 6 p.m. and stand in front of a microphone, but also having the old style community meeting too, or experimenting with ways to do to get both audiences somehow have their voice registered.
Anything to add? No. Sorry.
No, I'm happy to, but let you ask the next question.
Okay, and sorry. I guess, what's the plan? What do I tell people in District 6 for? Do you have any better idea of when Squares and Streets is going to be coming to Eggleston, Jamaica Plain, West Roxbury?
So today I think we've got 3 neighborhoods ahead of you if I include, 4 actually. I've got I've got Cleary, we've got Roslindale Square, we've got Four Corners and Codman, we've got Fields Corner coming up. Actually, I'm going to stop and say, I think you're really soon because I don't want to get it wrong. The consequences of getting it wrong are very severe.
Okay. And let's see, sorry. I guess in our during in response to our 17F requests, we were told that there were 26 vacancies at BPDA or in the planning department. So I guess are there still 26 vacancies, or are there more, and in what areas?
Happy to take that one. So I think we probably put some, actually, before I get to vacancies, maybe one question that goes back to your original question about values in the budget. I just want to make sure I clarify for the record. Again, kind of a transition year, not all, as discussed at length in our ordinance hearings, there are a certain number of staff that will remain on the BPDA side. We're not going to hire anyone new on the BPDA side, but for the purpose of keeping the retirement benefits, so you'll see the personnel expenditure, three-quarters of our staff will now be in the planning department. You'll see the personnel expenditure continue to increase as vacancies are created at the EDIC through attrition. They'll move to planning department. So the full budget is not necessarily reflected in your packet of all the expenditure we're spending on personnel, just what's on the city side. So that said, your question about vacancy, I think an important place to start is that under the chief's leadership, we've continued to expand the number of planning positions and planning development positions at the agency. We started with we had over 40 vacancies when Arthur started 2 years ago, and about 180 staff or so. We're now at 220 staff and 20 vacancies. Some of the vacancies suggested in the budget are inclusive of new positions that we want to add starting July 1st, and we're starting to consider recruiting for. Again, I guess we haven't talked about this in this hearing, but I want to highlight that all the monies associated with expenditure in the planning department are anticipated to come from BPDA real estate revenue. So we think we can expect to continue to increase the staff by those additional headcount without asking for any city expenditure, city dollar expenditure. No trade-offs from other departments. We think we can support those. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I'll have to think about it. Back to you, Chair.
You want to give them another shot at the?
No, I'll
Okay.
So there was a very long version on what are the vacancies. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess when the 26 number was brought up, was that including hopeful positions to fill? Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Council Flynn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief, Devin, and Tim, for being here, for the important work you're doing. Devin, one of the issues you and I have worked on for many years is the China Trade Building, how important it is to the residents in Chinatown. It's a building I love. Urban College is there. There's also some small businesses that are there, as well as the temporary public library. What are the short-term plans and the long-term plans for that building? Yeah,
I completely agree with you, Councilor, and thank you for your advocacy. It's such a great example of the public-private partnerships we can do within a building. I think the long-term plan is to continue to operate the building as it exists today with a couple of top floor uses that support. There's a market rate tenant at the top, community-focused educational uses in floors 2 through 5, and then community-oriented uses on the retail floors, the first floor and then the basement level. And that's our goal. That's how we want to operate that building, with a very specific focus on Chinatown, so we want to continue that. Short-term plans include just continuing to do good property management activities at the property. There's a need to do window replacements, so that's in our capital budget. Several years ago, we really did a lot of work to enhance the public realm in front of the building, created the Tree Plaza there. As once the new home, the permanent home for the Chinatown branch library is created, we'll have an opportunity to fill that vacancy in the basement. So we'd be excited to work with you and Chinatown stakeholders on how to do that when that opportunity arises.
Thank you, Devin. I think, and also the historical group is there. They play an important role. And Urban College, I've been to a couple of their classes in commencement several years ago. I think about 85% of their students are women of color, and they're involved in childcare educational programs, critical field. They're working hard, but they also deserve our support and assistance as well. So I want to make sure I advocate for those students, and that college doesn't have a brand name, it doesn't have a prestigious name, but they provide exceptional support to hardworking residents of the city of Boston. Thank you. I also want to focus on the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. What are the short-term plans and long-term plans there as well? The Port of Boston plays a critical role also in the economy of New England. The cruise ships that come into the city of Boston, bringing tourists for several days, big impact on our economy as well. What are we doing to ensure that the businesses that are there are successful, and also it's a welcoming environment for immigrant-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, but also maritime-related businesses there as well?
So the Flynn Marine Park, unique and special place, not anything else like it in the city's portfolio, and we're lucky to be the landowner and steward of it. And as I know you're well aware, Councilor, but just to want to take a moment to celebrate the years of work we put in together on creating the master plan, the update master plan for the Marine Park, which was finally in the last several weeks ratified by the state and has become the new, we had to go through the Office of Coastal Zone Management to get that approved. And one of the core pieces of that plan is preserving the land use in the Marine Park at 67% maritime uses. And then the majority of the remainder are industrial uses, which could include some of the up-and-coming life science and robotics industry use, but also classic manufacturing uses. We can have a small amount of supporting retail use, but really it's a unique home that's meant to protect, incubate, and grow the maritime economy in Boston, and ensure that it continues to exist for the long haul. So that's the plan. We've got a nice website dedicated to that planning document. We've created, through the finance team's help, a maritime capital reserve fund to help with investing any surplus revenue from the Marine Park back into the Marine Park, and that is focused on maritime uses. And we've been lucky to benefit from life science development in the neighborhood. We've tried to do that in a way that is supportive of maritime uses as well.
Thank you, Devin. Let me go on to the staff at the BPDA. Do we have anyone that speaks Cantonese?
I'm not 100% sure. We have a language access coordinator. I know we have several staff that,
So we, whenever we have a public meeting, we have available Cantonese translation. I don't know if we have a staff person who speaks Cantonese for certain, but I can confirm that.
Thank you, Chief. I do think it's important for us to try to recruit someone on the team that does speak Cantonese. It's the predominant language spoken in Chinatown, especially by the longtime elderly residents. Also, it's spoken in parts of the Back Bay in the Chinese community. We have a large Chinese community in the South End as well that speaks predominantly Cantonese as well. So I just want to highlight the importance of trying to bring someone on that does speak that language.
And we've historically hosted meetings in Chinatown that are primarily Cantonese meetings that are then translated into English to really support Cantonese speakers in participating in our workshops and planning. But I agree with you. The better we can do with inclusive language access, the better off we'll be.
Thank you. I do know that I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, when Mr. Breen was there, I worked with him on ensuring that the BPDA did have access to someone that spoke Cantonese for community meetings. So at one time, there wasn't anyone that, at one time, there weren't any meetings in Chinatown where Cantonese was spoken, but working with Mr. Breen, we were able to figure that out. Now it's a priority for BPDA. So I want to highlight the cooperation and important work that he has provided as well. The South End. What are we doing to better coordinate city services, city departments, when there's an ongoing development project? How are we working with other city departments, such as the water and sewer? They play a critical role, as you know, in the South End, or public facilities, or public works, parks. How are we ensuring that they're part of the process as we're doing development, that they're brought to the table as well, if there is a particular need for them to be engaged in a project?
We can answer that question in two ways. There's what we're doing today, and there's what we want to do better in the future. We'd love your input on both. What we're doing today, and when a development project is proposed, we send out a notification to departmental leaders across the city of Boston, invite them to a scoping session, and invite them to include their feedback as we shape the development. What we can do better, I think two categories. One, I think a common theme across maybe all of our commentary today is that the more strong planning we do up front, the better the predictable outcomes are, and planning efforts in our community should include our sister agencies. In the Article 80 process itself, we've been in an improvement effort, we've been talking a lot about the right moments to incorporate what feedback from which departments, and in some cases, we are considering moving some votes of approvals from other bodies that happen after BPA board vote, talking to the stakeholders involved about whether those should maybe come before to better capture their input and not presume that an approval is a fait accompli, and also not cause developments to have to go back to the board for a notice of project change if they encounter a substantial change that they need to do to meet the expectations of another governmental entity or approving body. So, and there's a lot we can do. There's a lot of effort being put into being coordinated and cross-functional and improving development, and a lot more we can continue to do as we reform our systems and processes.
Thank you. Chief, what's the biggest challenge we face in the city of Boston as it relates to real estate and development?
Thank you, Councilor. Interest rates and the challenge of building housing deregulating the production of housing. Those are the two things I think. If I look at everything we're doing, interest rates are making it very challenging for our development industry to build. They're used to having much lower interest rates, and the market has not quite adjusted to, in terms of cost, et cetera, to the changes. And then I would just say that it's every development project in the city struggles with, housing developments in particular struggle with the need to, unfortunately right now, in many cases, go to the ZBA to get relief, which is an indication of the zoning needs to be updated. There's other things, the complexity of our process, et cetera, but I think those are the top two.
Well, Chief, I've had the opportunity to work with you for a couple of years now, and you've been very professional and hardworking and determined. So just want to acknowledge the good job that you're doing in the city.
Thanks so much.
Mr. Chair, I have no further questions.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Thank you to the panel again. District 4, I see it as a place that has a lot of opportunity for growth, especially for growth for more home ownership opportunities for the residents that live there. We've identified opportunity for that growth. So just like the Mattapan discussion, we'd love to continue to have conversations like that within the district, whether it's in Common Square, American Legion Highway, Grove Hall, Bowdoin. Want to make sure that we're convening all stakeholders to have those conversations about growth. So just want to put that out there. But speaking about squares and streets, the Common Square, I know we postponed that conversation. There's a plan that was, I believe the BPDA was part of that plan, the co-design, co-led model. I'm a big advocate for it. Want to hear your ideas, your thoughts on how can we make that co-design, co-led process a part of squares and streets. I know last time you guys were in front of us for the ordinance, one of the things that you guys championed was to build trust, right? To build trust with the community members, and this is one thing that they're pushing, and I do believe this is one way that we build trust within the neighborhood and within community.
So, Chair, I just wanted to make sure I understood the question. It has to do with about having a co-leadership of the planning process in the two neighborhoods?
So they have presented a whole proposal on how they would like engagement, right, to be rolled out and what engagement looks like and how this process of squares and streets can be communicated or have community response and actually like work with that within the community before going on to the zoning conversation.
Got it. So we've had a commitment by our staff has been in dialogue with the group that's proposed that to basically say that we would work with them to design the outreach plan so that it's consistent with what they're consistent with, like a sort of tailor it to the things that they think are needed in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I think the answer just needs to be yes, right? We absolutely want to meet communities where they are and engage with them and create a shared vision of the future. While I know it was controversial in some communities to bring the squares and streets zoning to the board for approval before we mapped it anywhere, this is one of the reasons why we did it. So that we can say, we can point to zoning that exists, that is real and on paper, and there are options in that zoning around what levels of density we think might be appropriate, or not we think, what the community might think is appropriate, and we can have a very fruitful and productive conversation about how to apply that. And at the same time, I think it's also really important to mention the design work and the design vision process we've been leading to make sure that while the zoning might look very similar from Codman Square to Cleary Square, the actual design elements and the authenticity of the different neighborhoods are not the same. There's a different design vision that's authentic to that community. So those are things that come from those community dialogues and something we're really excited to do.
Awesome. Great to hear. On page 11 of your RFI about contracted diversity, you mentioned creating a supply diversity department under procurement. Is this still sitting under the planning department? Is this under A&F? Is this under OEOI? Because I know they have a supply diversity as well. And I just want to make sure that we're working together or, not, creating the same thing.
Correct.
Right.
This team is moving over just as the same as other BPDA staff to the planning department. We've already initiated conversations between city staff but because there will be still procurements occurring on the BPDA side for our capital budget that will require their efforts. They're going to be facilitating that. But we're excited about the new opportunities to start adopting city processes like inclusionary quote contracts potentially, or sheltered market program that I think we'll be able to gain through our efforts and build upon our equitable procurement plan that our agency had adopted several years prior.
And they've historically worked really closely with the city's procurement team and the Office of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion. Maybe I'd like to sort of position it as we move to a city department, we're a city department that has decided to invest in a specialized resource to make sure that, because we're spending a significant amount of money in neighborhoods, that we're doing so with dedicated resources to advance MWBE spending. That's a model that maybe could be replicated in other places, and in some cases may actually exist in some other departments as well, to make sure that we're practicing what we preach.
And I'm assuming you guys will keep your transportation experts as well. All right.
Yeah.
And what external funds are going to stay with EDIC, and what external funds are coming to the city either through planning or the Office of Workforce Development?
So with workforce development, there are about $19 million projected to remain with the BPDA next year. Those have reasons. For example, the city may...
Wait, and $19 million out of...
I'm sorry. I believe about 40 million is in state, federal, and city funds are transferring or will simply remain with the city in FY25. So those will go through the external funds process.
And then 19 will stay with the BPDA?
Correct. That includes ARPA money. That includes coronavirus local fiscal relief funds, funds that were subgranted to the EDIC, either directly from the city of Boston or due to a timing issue, such as Youth Works, because that is typically primarily takes place over the summer. That is most logical to transfer next year to the city. So,
thanks. And then I constantly hear from developers. You made mention to this earlier. Was when we streamline, like one of the issues is that we don't have a process that's streamlined, right? Mm-hmm. So, just from my understanding, when we do come on the other side of Article 80 process, when we're talking to developers, like what is the cost savings that they will experience off of a more streamlined process? Because I just want to ensure, right, like that cost savings gets passed back down to the residents.
So I think the first cost savings that they're going to experience is if they're developing in a place like East Boston or a place like Charlestown or Mattapan or any place that's had recent rezoning, they're going to be able to, develop a reasonable project without having to go and seek all the potential and go through all the potential risks associated with going to the ZBA, because they recently been rezoned, and so producing a product that can probably meet demand and also be simpler to develop. That's one of the outcomes of the zoning changes we've already made and the ones we're intending to make. And then in Article 80, because of that sort of set up properly, because of that zoning, there'll be hopefully less to negotiate about. There'll be a very specific understanding of how many days they can expect, because one thing that developers will say often is controlling land or holding on to land that can be expensive. So if a process goes from 1 year to 2 years, it makes a big difference. Right. So knowing how fast we're going to respond to what they submit will be helpful, as well as knowing at the outset, what's the mitigation request going to be on a per square foot basis.
And my question is more like, what percentage of cost is that to the developer, right? Like how much would they be saving because of those streamlined efforts? Is it 5%,
Sure.
10%, 50%?
It's going to be case by case.
Right, I know it's
hard to
case
give
by
an answer,
case,
but I would just
yeah.
say categorically, it's
Right.
incremental cost of interest associated with holding on to land that they bought, and then the second thing would be, they have to pay architects
Right.
to design. If they pay architects to design the project once in a concept or schematic basis, paying them to design it 3 times based on the changes that came out of a ZBA meeting or the changes that came out of a Article 80 meeting it's saving them a lot. So I would like to give you a real percentage later. Sorry for the long answer.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Now we'll go to public testimony. We do have one via Zoom. When your name is called, please come down to one of the two podiums and state your name, neighborhood, and/or organization affiliation. Please speak into the microphone, and please keep your comment to 2 minutes. As Zoom is there. Diane, you now have the floor. Okay, Diane, we're trying to move you over to the main room. If you could click yes, we could promote you to testify. Good. Has she been moved over? Diana, if you're there, please click yes. She's declining? Okay. All right, so no public testimony at this time. We'll move back to my council colleagues for a second round of questions, starting with Council Coletta. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 questions, very quick. Affirmatively furthering fair housing. Thank you for your work on all of that, and shout out to the housing manager who is working day in and day out on that. I had asked about the BIF deck to the Office of Housing Equity. I hope I'm getting that right. Oh my goodness. And he said that it was a challenge to staff it, and that there's been some, definitely some work to try to get folks to attend it. I guess, how is it going on the BPDA side? And do you feel like it is living up to the spirit of what it was supposed to be, which was to develop a plan for ongoing monitoring of commitments and reporting requirements for AFFH?
Yeah. So I'd say we're our policy director, Ruben Cantor, is now staffing the DIFTIC. As you know, we've done a lot of work to move the leadership on the housing function firmly in under Sheila Dillon Shop, Chief of Housing. And so I would defer to the policy questions to that shop, but I think it's really important to us that we're working hand in hand with the Office of Fair Housing and Mayor's Office of Housing to advance fair housing. A lot has changed since 2020 when affirmatively furthering fair housing was put into the zoning code. Major accomplishment, major achievement for the city of Boston, and great leadership. But things like, a really important thing that we've done since then is put inclusionary housing into the zoning code, right? So the degree to which inclusionary development is a negotiable item, we've really kind of closed that negotiation, and it should be done much more as inclusionary zoning is implemented much more predictably going forward. Advancing fair housing, but less negotiation, so less need for an approval of every single inclusionary development agreement. The analysis in many cases has certainly led to better advocacy and better outcomes in projects. For example, larger bedroom sizes in some developments. But things like the pushing for the percentage of affordable to change, I think that's really covered by inclusionary zoning. So I think there's a lot we can learn from that group, and a lot that is now being applied into our ongoing efforts through either Article 8 reform or inclusionary zoning or zoning code changes, and we should come back and look at affirmatively furthering fair housing from that sort of like, what have we accomplished since then lens. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me know about that and being so candid with your response. Obviously there was a lot that was put into affirmatively furthering fair housing, say that 5 times fast, besides just the IDP. What are you doing to proactively break down barriers to allow for neighborhoods to be built to the inclusion of folks, especially those who were historically excluded from those conversations. So would love to touch base maybe offline and talk about how it is going and what we could do to, I don't know, rethink it if we need to.
Yeah, and a lot of it's disclosure-based, and I think what we're moving toward is making some of the things that are questions and disclosures and items of discussion in affirmatively furthering fair housing and making them requirements, which makes it easier to administer and more predictable and probably better outcomes too.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And my last question is just, you thought I was going to forget about this, Chief, but my neighborhood needs analysis for East Boston. How is that going? And will we actually have the public safety component of it completed by this year?
So I know that, so the short answer is it's going okay. One of our key leaders, I think you had a chance to speak with her, Amy Chambers, had some bereavement leave, and but she's back on it, and I think that we're going to meet the standard that you laid out for us about this. I think we've committed to do it, and it may have been a little delayed from when we were hoping to be done, but Amy reached out to you at my request, and I think we're going to make good on our commitment to you.
Thank you. And I was actually wondering about Director Chambers, because she has been so wonderful. You can tell that she knows her stuff. She's very intelligent, and so my thoughts are with her. And just want to call out the fact that I think even just 4 to 5 years ago, there was a lot of push for more women to be in leadership positions. So I'm happy to see that there's been a major change with that, and indicative by Director Chambers. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. She and Diana are among a number of other women leaders like Teresa Polhemus and others are doing a great work in our organization. RFP, we're anticipating advertising it in June, just so you know.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and so, I'm sorry, last question. The money that's going to be utilized for fixes in the Navy Yard, so I'm thinking the Harbor Walk and Pier 5, that's coming from the capital funds from the BPDA, or?
Yes.
Okay.
For at least as we continue to own those assets, it will be the obligation of the BPDA to pay for those. I think in future years, we'll have this conversation with the council. If we want to transfer any of those assets to the city for any given reason, then yeah, they might become eligible for city capital dollars, but that's a sort of a property by property conversation. So the answer for right now is yes, those are BPDA responsibilities.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Council Braden, the floor is yours.
Sorry, Councilor Braden. I have a child care pickup obligation in 5 minutes from now, so my colleagues can certainly stay.
Okay. It's nothing personal then. You're not running out the door.
Please.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Devin. So I'm curious about the arrangement with the BPDA / planning department's legal counsel. Like, are you bringing your own lawyers over with you? And how does your team interact with like our corporation counsel? Will they be supplementing like they support other departments in the city? Will they be supporting yours? And are they up to, yours is a particularly specialized area of law. Like, how will that work out? Will they have the knowledge base and be prepared enough to monitor compliance from, for all the complex documents they have to deal with?
So there's two parts to the answer. Do you want to do the first part, Tim, or I can do it?
Sure. So our legal team is transferring over to the planning department. For our new contracts that will be contracted through the city, my understanding is that the city's central legal department will be reviewing those solicitations and contracts as they go through the process. Our existing legal team will continue to provide support for our real estate department, reviewing leases, and our finance department and our procurement on the BPDA side as well. I don't know if...
So I would just add to that as part of the MOAs that are going to guide the future of this relationship, we're going to be outlining very specifically how that works. Our general counsel, Lisa Harrington, one of the great leaders in our organization, has a really unique body of knowledge and is really essential to the ability of the city to get the best value. So there's going to be a specific MOA arrangement about what they're working on, because there really can only be one council for the city. So the MOA is going to define that.
Okay, very good. I'm curious about, in the budget book, there's a union, BXM, Union Step Personnel Code. Like, what is BXM? What's that? I'm not familiar with that one. In the personnel department list.
I see that. I'm not familiar with that.
That could be your starter for 10.
Yes.
Very good. Not to worry. And then the Planning Advisory Council, how often do they meet? Every 90 days? Is that how it's working?
They meet every 30 days.
30 days?
Every 30 days, and we've had a presentation every month and sort of coordination on plans every month. The first sort of public-facing thing you can see is sort of the Mattapan plan storyboards are up now. I can forward to this committee and to you the link to see that. But it's basically showing the implementation of the Plan Mattapan work.
Yeah. I'm also curious about procurement for professional planning services. I know you do a lot of that. You bring in a lot of consulting folks to do that, and they do a great job. Will those procurement, will that go through City Procurement Department, or will you continue to do that?
We will be continuing to do that. We've been working closely with the City Procurement Department to make sure staff is trained on the base financial system, on every aspect from initiating a purchase order and hosting a bid event and entering into a contract. So our procurement team in the finance section will still be responsible for that.
And Arthur, the question, Beacon Park Yards, it's such a huge space,
yep.
And a lot of it is like we're thinking 20, 30 years ahead. It's hard for people to get their heads around it. So when we have our big ideas for Beacon Yards sort of conversations, it's I'm just wondering, like, when you look at the drawings, it's like looks like a highway interchange to me, and I wanted to see be so much more than that in terms of a mixed-use neighbourhood with mixed income, a lot of residential, mixed income, climate resiliency, stormwater management, all of that. Like, I don't know how's that going, and how fruitful an exercise is it at this time when there's so many uncertain big questions about.
I mean, I think it's always a good time to plan, especially Beacon Park Yards. There's the sort of order of magnitude issues there from just creating the site where the development could happen is very expensive. And so any planning and priority setting that can exist, even if it's very broad brush, is going to have really high value for the future. So I'm actually pretty excited about that. And I think it's a worthwhile investment, especially because there's 3 or 4 different plans that are going on in your neighborhood right now, as I'm sure your constituents are talking about. Got maybe worn out, but all of them are very important to creating that list of priorities that represent the neighborhood's interests, and is really what we're trying to achieve in our negotiation with Harvard together.
Yeah. When I think in terms of the transit infrastructure, it'll be a missed opportunity if you don't invest in mass transit and get people off the highway. The notion that you'd cut down the highway for 10 years for a big construction project and then you would expand the highway in 10 years' time, it sort of doesn't make any sense. So, we have a lot ahead of us.
We do.
Incredible climate challenges and all the rest of it. So thank you all for your work, and I look forward to continuing the conversation with you all.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor.
Thank you. Councilor Fernandez-Anderson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My final questions here are, how does the initial transfer of the seed money that you're sending to the city, how does that impact the agency overall cash flow?
You can go first.
Is it like the same amount in planning now, or are you just shifting the same amount of people, the same amount of cash, the same amount of? expense?
The cash flow is, right now, is going to be slightly different. The proposal right now, as it stands, is to make the financial transfers to the city on a quarterly basis. Meanwhile, the revenue will continue to accrue to the BPDA. So right now we're anticipating and planning for that big initial transfer on July 1st. And that's already in our projections, and that's what we're anticipating.
So, Councilor, maybe that's definitely a part of the answer. I think the other part of the answer is it's basically taking the sort of staff and administration that we're currently paying for with a few additional FTEs and moving it over to the city.
Okay, thank you. Can you please explain and identify how you plan to reconcile between expenses incurred by the city planning department and the money spent beforehand? So sent to the city. So if there's any differences, would you need to supplement any amounts?
Okay. So, you, Tim, I think you have the best handle on this, but basically, as you were saying, as a quarterly opportunity to true up, the cost.
Got it. So your checks and balances are happening regularly, quarterly, and that gives you opportunity to.
Correct.
What will be your process, I guess, accurately, like representing current and anticipated costs it will take to run external agency? Like, do you foresee spending out of any other accounts?
No, this is our general fund.
Thank you. And how will you track what gets paid by the BRA bank account versus the EDIC?
That's a good question. Primarily that is due to where the property, which agency actually is responsible for and owns the property under its, within that agency. With respect, that's what I would say to that.
Okay. Thank you. And what is the general accepted accounting guidance for this type of transfer?
Right, we're designating this transfer as a grant or a contractual expense, and that's due to the relationship as defined as by the MOA with the city.
Any documents to back up required?
The MOA.
The MOA, just, okay. And I know some of this we went through in the ordinance process, but hearings, but just, this now is the time. This is supposed to be the hearing where we vet through all of these, so I just wanted to have a fresh on my documents. So I guess, sorry about that. My children are emergency, sorry.
Okay.
They ring no matter what, sorry. If, I guess if the home rule petition doesn't get voted on and continues to get delayed, right? What is the long-term impact and how will planning department will be transferring funds between city and BPDA? And will that just continue, but we'll still have a board and essentially BPDA will still be permitting or not permitting projects? How do you foresee the long-term impact, and have you thought about processes to sort of mitigate or communicate between the planning and the board?
Sure, so there's probably a finance answer, and then I can give a broader agency answer.
From a finance perspective, there should be really no effect on our finances. We would simply transfer that proportionate to the abilities of the BRA or the EDIC. Historically, the EDIC has provided a intergovernmental grant annually to the BRA to support BRA costs. So that transaction would still occur, but the bulk of the revenues have traditionally been associated with the EDIC.
The broader answer would just be that so the urban renewal the sort of ending of urban renewal and the sort of permanent codification of the affordable housing restrictions and the restrictions on open space would need to be brought back to this body to be extended. I think right now they're only good through, I think, sometime next year. The other thing that would need to happen is, BPDA staff who want to sort of become sort of former staff or moving over who'd want to become part of the retirement system, believe that they wouldn't necessarily be allowed to do that unless the home rule petition passes. So those are a couple of examples of things that would be impacted if we didn't. There will continue to be a BPDA board that acts as the planning board of the city and votes on the approval of projects.
Okay. Thank you. There's at least 3 developments in my district that we've been following up on, and they're just not good players, right? And sometimes we run into these people that I think this is similar to what's already been asked, but 556 Columbus Ave, Northampton Street, residents at 597 to 599 Columbus Ave, and 715 to 725 Tremont Street, also slash, I guess in the corner, 115 Worcester Street, that will promise community benefits but will not deliver. Are there any consequences to this? Is there, if they've actually signed an agreement with BPDA?
So there should be. So on each of these 3 projects you've mentioned, you're saying that they've gone forward and started, and they have not delivered their commitments, or they have been approved and haven't started and given commitments?
They have started, and one has completed, and they have not delivered on their commitment or have only given part of what they promised.
So we've got a bunch of different forms of leverage over them, but certainly we can send a demand letter, and we can, we can hold a meeting, but anyone who started a project and wants a certificate of occupancy from the city, we have the ability to look into what's going on and get some answers. Have you raised these? I'm very curious to learn more about this. Who have you raised these issues with at the agency?
We'll talk offline.
Because our certificate of completion is required typically for them to achieve occupancy. So again, I need to understand the details of the individual case, but we have a lot of leverage.
If it's okay with you, we can talk offline.
Please, I would love for you to get information about each of these projects and track down what they're not doing.
Thank you so much. I'd like that as well. In terms of your demographics, I noticed you sent the top 10, but we didn't get a breakdown of your demographic. And I know that, who is your supplier diversity person? Who's that now?
Robert Springer.
Robert Springer?
Supplier diversity manager.
Robert Springer, supplier diversity manager. Can you tell me about improvements? Because I know that, Chief, you're really big on this, and since your appointment, you've actually increased diversity. But I want to understand where we are today from, years past.
Sure. We should, listen, if you would like to have more information about, I think certainly our top 10 leaders really reflect to a greater degree the diversity of the city. I'm confident you'll see when we get, and I'm happy to get you more demographic information about the whole agency. I think that you'll see that too. But just to make sure, you'd like to see am I right that you'd also like to see, besides that matrix, a kind of a comparison of how maybe years ago and today?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Including sex differential, like what comparisons, male, female pay, and then break down demographics and pay. Thank you so much. And this is all important, right? Like with all of the historic practices prior to you guys being here. and how we're working as a city to, work on diversity and inclusion. I do have a question about how would you go about, like, that I filed to create a diff or to explore the conversation on a diff. What is the process? And I know this is technically legally or abiding by the state, but how would the community members or nonprofit would be, or what is the process to setting up a diff with the BPDA?
So, district improvement financing, am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So, I have to be candid that my knowledge of this is primarily about a TIF program here. I've not done the DIF. I might ask, Tim, have you had any experience with doing one of them here?
No, I haven't.
Okay. If it's a state program, I think it's probably a sort of city application process. If it's like the other TIFs that I'm aware of, it would have to come before this body. There'd have to be, the CFO would need to sign off on it, and then it would need to be approved here and then approved at the state. Those are typically the processes involved in approving incremental financing like that.
Yes. Okay. I did find a package with the state. I have to go through it. It was a lot of pages.
Okay.
One of my adding to read list. But I can go through it, and I know that there's a nonprofit currently that received seed money from the Boston Foundation, and they were very excited about Roxbury creating one. And after the hearing, they gained some momentum, and so we would like to, go forward or at least assist them in understanding the process. So I can follow up with that as well. For Squares and Streets neighborhoods being currently launched, do you have comprehensive plan document that categorizes current state, such as all existing businesses within the designated planning area, including whether the owner qualifies for MBE, WBE, VBE, or PBE, and type of business's square footage, tenure in planning area? So basically, overall, like, are we being intentional in terms of like actually creating like whether dashboards or some sort of like transparent list of figuring out the bucket to pull from, so that we can ensure that we are increasing diversity?
Okay, so I think what we do have, and this is because of Chief Idowu, is I believe we do have or are gathering in each of these planning areas that kind of that specific information. OI tracks that, and we're anticipating that as we sort of get deeper into our planning processes, they'll have that data to rely on in the planning dialogue.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you. Could you talk a little bit about planning department's efforts to revise zoning code? So what does that process look like in creating greater cohesion between various different neighborhood plans?
So I think the way to think about it is a lot of the roads that we're talking about here lead to zoning. So by way of example, when we come up with the final Article 80 changes, they'll be codified through the zoning code. When we are done with Squares and Streets, it'll be the zoning code will be where those changes happen. So I think what we're trying to do is focus on those things that have the maximum impact on our ability to sort of create great neighborhoods, and for example, creating housing in Squares and Streets neighborhoods, and IDP, ZNC, the various things that we're doing. We're trying to prioritize those, but we are also later this year, I believe, going to be outlining a more programmatic approach. We believe that these are the things we need to do immediately, but the overall process of cleaning up the code and making it more legible, simpler, et cetera, is going to require more steps. So what you're seeing now are really, whether it's ADUs or Plan Mattapan, is like the process of making good on our commitment to various neighborhoods to complete their planning processes and to start the things that have the most immediate impact. But over the next few months, we'll be rolling out more of a programmatic approach to addressing the sort of broader cleanup of the code.
That makes sense. Thank you. So I guess I saw something here about how you were, where's my page? I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. When you sent the information about the MBEs increasing up to 14%, so the increase being 6% in 2022, FY22 rather, I guess I was missing the information for between 23 and 24 and how we did there, if there were any improvements at all. If you could submit them, please.
Just to clarify, this is our contract spend?
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Thank you so much.
So I think we've got a additional package of information that sort of we're planning to provide as part of the questions that were asked. So I think we can include that data if we have it as part of that.
That makes sense. Thank you. And so this part right here, through the Planning Advisory Council, I think the chair mentioned this, develop a coordinated anti-displacement strategy focused on addressing gaps in service and clear communication to residents. I really appreciate that. And, you know, in expanding on this, like, so the District 7 Advisory Council, as you know, is a coalition of civic association leaders and stakeholders in District 7 that come together to talk about, you know, policies or pain points that inform our policies, projects, and budget in District 7. And so we created, or the community created, a nonprofit to mitigate, and then they've been approved, and then Boston Foundation gave them some seed money that when they were ready to begin the community process for master planning in terms of anti-displacement, that they would use this $150,000 to actually procure a consultant to execute or facilitate the community engagement. And you know, and there it becomes a master plan, right? You can't call it that if it hasn't engaged community. And so the partnership that we created, and I see here, as you mentioned, in terms of enhancing or advancing institution master plans. You listed Harvard and BU, and we did the same. Our office and the district stakeholders and this advisory council partnered with Northeastern, the architect students there, anti-displacement studio, along with BU, who did a lot of comparative analysis, along with MIT, who is going to be doing spatial mapping. And I mean, it takes so much resources to bring all of this together. And Harvard in their own piece in terms of equity studies. And we're trying to create a compilation of all of these equity studies between Boston Foundation and Embrace, right? BECMA is working on small business. As you know, we have different projects in District 7, like resiliency corridors and the ARC corridor and the different types of things. And we're calling it the Ottery, that Roxbury is the heart of Boston. It should thrive. It should revitalize its artery so that it could pump health, right, and life into Boston. And so with that idea in mind, it's boosting its economy, it's fighting climate displacement, commercial displacement, and housing displacement, and how we look at development in a way that increases amenities to actually invest in social determinants of health, therefore fighting, you know, racist structures or practices or whatever, but supporting social determinants of health to improve quality of life in District 7, hopefully fighting displacement on all three levels that I mentioned. And so that in a nutshell is sort of the planning piece, where how to address these inequities, health, you know, environmental, housing, economy, like economic inequities, but and also like this full compilation of all of these studies, bringing it together and what that looks like for Roxbury. And so I am hoping that, I think it sounds like we're on the same page. In the community, in the last 2 years in partnership with my office, we've partnered and we've done all of this work. So the community has a plan. Mm-hmm. And the community, because I heard you loud and clear, Chief, we sat here a couple years ago and you said, I get what you're saying, slow down process to be intentional, connecting land that was taken, you know, by historic harms to reparations or other, right, methods that redress harms. But what do? We can't just sit and do nothing. We have to develop and thrive as a city. And I agreed with you. And so we went to work. And so I am putting out this on here in this platform to say Roxbury is deeply concerned about displacement on all those levels, and they've put in so much sweat and tears into preserving. And funny enough, somebody just pointed out this book to me today, Dr. Crockett's People's Highways, and I can't wait to read it because I just opening it a few pages. There's points in there about, you know, in planning and how, like in politics, and how that can like really, there's a way to be able to do that properly with community. So I just wanted to close with that to say, we've been doing a lot of work, and I know in the beginning it sounded fragmented, right? When I would come to you, I would say, hey, placemaking, hey, our corridor. Like, how do we do that? How do we revitalize business corridors? And now it's all coming together. And I think it's going to be a wonderful partnership, if you allow me, for us to be able to work on this anti-displacement master plan.
Okay. It does sound very aligned with what we're doing. What sort of next steps should we be taking?
I think the next steps here is I can present to you exactly where we are. We have several decks that can show you the updated version of the work. Yeah. And I can show you sort of like the rubric of like next steps where what we think in a timeline of where we are and how much time this will take for us to get to the community engagement process. But I think it has to be a collaboration. If the community has already planned and been working on this, then it's for us to partner and say, it's not that the community doesn't want. You know how when people are campaigning and the black community goes, what's your black agenda? What's your black plan? You know how people ask that of mayors often? Mm-hmm. Well, it's a shame really, because we're always chasing the agenda or the carrot, right? If you're disenfranchised and inundated with stressors and your life and everything else and all the disinvestments, you're always behind the agenda. And so asking, what do you plan to do to address inequity in my community, mm-hmm. is in itself counterintuitive, right? And so I believe that this worked because they had alternatives, they had objectives, and they had clear ideas of what the alternative could be. And so if the city is saying happy to partner as long as the community knows what they want, or they have been in planning, have been in organizing, have been in meetings, and therefore we can invest in something that makes sense because there's been already work and studies behind it. Well, the community has done that, and I think in a few months we'll be ready to deliver a full presentation to you. But the immediate next step for you and I think mm-hmm. I can present to you exactly where we are so that you are completely up to date.
Welcome. I'm excited to do that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For indulging.
Thank you, Councilor Fernandez Anderson. We did receive a letter of absence from Councilor Mejia. I'm just going to read these questions into the record and then submit them to you for answers in writing. Dear Chair, I'm writing to formally request your assistance in recording my questions for the May 7th, 2 p.m. budget hearing for the Planning Department. Question number 1 for the Squares and Streets, Neighborhoods and Development. Does the Planning Department have comprehensive documents detailing the current status, including details like existing businesses classified as MBE, WBE, VBE, or PBE, type of business, square footage, tenure in the area, etc.? Number 2, does the Planning Department have specific goals established for each planning area? For example, goals for the number of housing units categorized as rental or ownership in affordable levels. Number 3, we would like to request on the record comprehensive planning documents for Rosendale Square, Clary Square, Common Square, and Phil's Corner. Number 4, given that this will be the first year that the Planning Department, formerly BPDA, will be under the City of Boston? Will there be any new metrics of success? How will we ensure government accountability, transparency, and accessibility? Number 5, given the feedback of the community, feelings of being unseen, unheard, expressed in the hearing, office hosted to audit plan initiatives across Boston in October 2023. What infrastructure policies and procedures will the planning department look to implement? And number 6, what are the accountability measures to hold the planning department accountable to the voices of the people? If you want to, I read that a little quickly, but if you want to respond, or you could definitely respond in writing to that, feel free to.
We thank the councilor for her questions. We will be happy to respond to them in writing as part of our submittal.
Thank you. And then 2 things to say. One, when it comes to affirmatively furthering fair housing, do we take into account what, when people are leaving the City of Boston, what they're purchasing, what they're acquiring outside of the City of Boston, to kind of, because sometimes when I see those reports, it speaks to the need of 1-bedroom studios, 2 bedrooms, but are people leaving to purchase those, that type of housing stock, right? So what are we doing to keep people here opposed to, like, are we using that data point in that data?
So I don't know if we have good information about the specific thing they're going to, but I think we can definitely, I think it's something our research department can tell us, if they're moving to Charlotte, Charlotte has these kinds of, this is the kind of, this is a little bit about the kind of housing that's on sale there. This is a little bit about the rental rates there, so that we can compare what they're moving to and what they're moving from. Yeah,
because that'll be helpful for me and I think other city councilors on when we're advocating to developers on what type of development, housing inventory that we need inside of the City of Boston and the community to kind of stop that displacement from happening. Lastly, I just want to shout out a few people: Caitlin, Noyce, Amy, Mark, Talia, Camille, Quinn, Christine, Robert, Bill, and I got to shout out Jeff one more time. All people who have been responsive, collaborative, respectful, great team that you have over there, Chief. And looking forward to having them on this side as well. Just also want to just shout out central staff, BPD, my colleagues, my team, for always working hard and making these hearings work. And with that said, the hearing on docket numbers, I should have this memorized by now, 0670 through 0678 is adjourned.
Thanks very much.